It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We got a great show for you coming up here in just a few moments. Erin Real, a national correspondent for NBC News Radio, going to be joining us. How much is in your wallet? If you want to know how America is doing, just look at your wallet. We're going to take a look at how much Americans have available to spend versus how much they owe. And some of what she has discovered may surprise you. Not going to want to miss that conversation. Kristi Burton Brown joins us in the 7 o'clock hour to give us some insight on the ballot initiatives. The numbers are officially coming out today. So that kind of no on Amendment 79 stuff, you're going to know exactly what they are and what those numbers are so we can help prepare you and your ballot. And then George W. Bush not willing to endorse Donald Trump.
No.
And Dick Cheney going the other direction and endorsing Kamala Harris. What are your thoughts on that? We'll get into that. And new New York Times Siena poll coming out over the weekend. Might be surprised as to who's in the lead. Lots of news to cover, plus the debate tomorrow night. Probably the only one we're going to have, my guess.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's going to be the only one too. I don't think we're going to get another one after this.
Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, ABC News, 7 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow. And by the way, Salem will be providing coverage of that. So
yeah, I got Larry Elder and a bunch of his friends on early.
Yeah.
And then are you doing something live during it?
We'll see.
I
need
know
the green light from somebody.
I'm sitting in a bar not watching the debate. I'm really struggling with how I'm going to manage my time schedule because I've got to catch up on the debate. But the bar that I'm going to be in on Tuesday night has Taylor Swift trivia. And I had talked to
That's a big night.
Yeah, and I talked to my boss and I'm like this, and he's like, dude, Taylor Swift. And he's like, you understand, you're like one of two people I have on the staff that I feel comfortable with executing this type of is that other ones can do it, but you get it and you understand her music. And can you? I'm like, but debate, he goes, please. So we made a conversation, had a little bit of an agreement. So he made it worth my while. So yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna be in the bar. Yeah.
Billy and I had very different weekends that reflect our personalities.
Yes, completely different, my friend. You were mowing a pasture while I spent 5 hours at a concert. I'm still sore and tired and still buzzing because of it. It was fantastic. It was Green Day Saviors
Tour.
What
makes this show work.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, Rancid showed up, and they sounded as good as they did in the 90s. Wow. That was amazing. Again, I'm a huge Rancid fan, so I'm totally biased. I think Tim Armstrong should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but he's never going to get there. And there was one time in which they hit a certain song. It's only about a year old, called Tomorrow Never Comes. And that's where I had a wandering eye. That's where old Billy starts looking over there at the mosh pit going, ooh, I wanna. Oh, I wanna. But I'm like, no. I'm way too old and I'm way too out of shape and I can't possibly function in there. But oh, did I want to go?
And then I remembered I visit Balance Well
Exactly.
Space, and I jumped right in there
Yeah.
knowing that they'll take care of me afterwards.
If I didn't have my knee brace on reminding me about it, I'd been like, I might have made some other bad decisions, but I didn't. I stood out of it. Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corrigan was in a good mood, I believe, and so their set was solid. And Green Day played for over 2.5 hours or so. They did the entire Dookie album, the entire American Idiot album. So it was like 37 songs long, and they just burnt through it. Wow. It was amazing. And there were songs that you didn't get to hear a lot. Letter Bomb, they don't play that almost ever live. You don't get to hear things like Sassafras Root. So it was fantastic. It was such a great show. And it's the first show that my oldest son ever went to.
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah, Max was there with me. And it's nice because I think he went there, God, he had to be 12, I think, at the time when I took him to his first Green Day show. Yeah. So it was so much fun. And I'm still tired. But you spent 2.5 hours in Mona pasture, my friend.
I did ranch work. And that is the brilliance of 710K in the US. They put a guy who went to Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, which I haven't listened to in like 10 years.
Dude, Pumpkins
at least.
Pumpkins have a new song, Siomie, that's really good. really good. I'm not too happy with a lot of their newer stuff. This new single,
You're a
fantastic.
music savant, Bill. You're a music savant. Meanwhile, I was very happy to listen to country music and chug along on my tractor.
That's fantastic. That is why this show works.
All right, let's check in on the news and commentary with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning. Where was the concert, Billy?
Coors Field.
Oh, no kidding.
It was gorgeous.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a beautiful day.
That was fantastic. It was not too hot, gorgeous night. It was absolutely perfect. It was fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. And they were wonderful. Every band came and just showed up. It was wonderful. You don't always get that when you get 4 bands on the bill.
And I'm guessing I could tell you what Blake did this weekend. Probably some football.
You know what, guys? It was an awesome day at Canvas Credit Union Stadium at CSU. They played host to UNC. So it was Northern Colorado and Colorado State. It was Ag Day up there at Fort Collins. And the stadium is great. Beautiful day. Weather was perfect. But here, you're going to appreciate this. So in this day of high-priced college football, at the Division I level, at the upper Division I level, where there are some players who make $500,000 playing football every season. And the NIL deals and money here, money there, and you're treated very well if you're a Division I football player at the higher levels. Well, UNC they have to watch their budget. A little different situation in FCS. So it's a 32-mile drive from Greeley to Fort Collins. Most teams stay in a hotel, even at home games. Prior to their home games, they stay at a hotel and they take a charter bus to the stadium, and they're treated very well. Anyway, maybe 4 hours before the game, I'm over at the stadium. UNC hasn't left Greeley yet, and the coach texts me some video he wanted me to see. They took school buses over to the stadium.
No.
It was awesome.
Oh, wow.
They had 6 District 6 school buses that they drove from Greeley to Fort Collins with the team and the sports staff. And it was so cool. Taking it back, hard hat.
Oh, that's nice.
Hard working team. I mean, this is kind of the epitome of UNC football.
Yeah, those are lunchbox players.
Room, and going back to old school, and so it was cool. I thought you guys would
that's
appreciate
awesome.
That. They rolled up to the fancy new stadium in Fort Collins in school buses,
that
just
is
like
beautiful.
they did back in high school football. So it was pretty cool. All right, 60 and sunny in Denver. I'll get going here. I'm sorry. Back to work. Expecting a high of 90 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story: a manhunt prompted a shelter in place for parts of Rocky Mountain National Park and Estes Park Sunday night. The closure was in the eastern part of the park, and police were looking for a white male who's approximately 5'9", weighs 165 pounds. He's bald. He was wearing blue jeans with no shirt or shoes. He was seen running from his car near the Beaver Meadows Visitors Center. And then there's no word on any arrests as of Monday morning. Anyone who sees this person should call 911. The shelter in place has been lifted. He was speeding through the park, crashed into and injured 3 people, drove recklessly down Trail Ridge Road, US 34, for 45 miles. They couldn't get to him, eventually crashed, and then ran towards some homes in Estes Park. And that's when they put the shelter in place. And they have lifted it. Once again, he's still on the run, though. A suspect is dead, and a Colorado State Patrol trooper is recovering following a Saturday afternoon shootout on US 36 in Denver. Corporal Ty Simcox was doing paperwork while parked on the side of the highway when the suspect began shooting at him. He suffered a gunshot wound to his arm, but returned fire and killed the suspect. Simcox was treated for his injury at a local hospital, and there's no word on the suspect's identity or what led to the shooting.
Vice President Harris, still people believe that he can handle the economy better.
Okay, so she won't talk to journalists, but Kamala Khan will go on with Baby Girl, a podcast that a lot of Latin listeners evidently download.
What would you say to them that are listening to you right now? How could you change their minds that you could do it and even better?
Well, you should look at what I've accomplished thus far. The work.
Yes, you should. That's all you need to know. VP Harris and former President Trump will meet in person. The first debate tomorrow night on ABC at 7 Mountain. 90 minutes of social issues, I'm sure. Half of it, I'm almost certain they'll talk about women's reproductive rights, even though there's no reproduction involved in abortions. Trump on the stump over the weekend.
To every citizen who's sick and tired of the parasitic political class in Washington that sucks our country of its blood and treasure, November 5th will be your liberation day. November 5th this year will be the most important day in the history of our country.
Colorado flags will remain lowered until sunset to honor 2 Department of Transportation workers. CDOT's Wednesday crash occurred on Highway 6 in Mesa County. The rookie debut of Broncos quarterback Bo Nix on Sunday.
Nix evades the sack. Nix the fake. Another fake, and he spins into the end zone for the Denver touchdown.
And as far as throwing, Nix was 26 of 42, 138 yards, but 2 interceptions, threw into double coverage a couple of times. 26-20 Seahawks over the Broncos. Bo Nix.
I don't think we were far off, but there's always going to be, even if we had won that game, you're going to go in there and correct it the same way. So find ways to run plays as efficient as possible and stay out of third and longs, and overall find ways to get a win in these tough games.
Give him time. I think he'll be a good one. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplaceandpatio.com. lairfireplacepatio.com. 56 in Broomfield, 57 in Greenwood Village, 60 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. It's Monday morning. Here we go. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies, comfortably warm September temperatures in the upper 80s to near 90 today, tomorrow, staying in the 80s Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Nights in the 50s. So a continuation of the nice September weather we had over the weekend. The only wrinkle is there might be in the coming days 1 or 2 isolated afternoon and evening late day showers and storms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
So late last week, we went down to Whispering Pines. It sounds so nice. Apartment complex down in Aurora, Colorado. This is where Venezuelans have apparently taken over and There's a lot of debate over whether or not this is actually happening. Jason Crow saying over the weekend, no, this is all just blown up. Right-wing organizations and politicians are, quote, airdropping into the community.
You know, this got to add this one in. I ran into, and it wasn't just a singular one, through some of the videos I was running through over the weekend.
Yeah.
I ran into several higher profile liberal commentators out there making aspersions and taking the Channel 9 side. They're just making this up. They're making this up. I'm like, whoa, I was surprised how many did that nationally.
Yeah. This is a big deal because this has permeated down into just regular people talking about this issue. What's really happening in Aurora? I'm going to give you a brief synopsis, and then we're going to get to Erin Real here in just a second. So we went down to Whispering Pines on Thursday of last week. We found Venezuelan gangs are absolutely intimidating residents. There's strong gang presence. While we were even there, multiple times, at least 2 cars drove by 5 times, very slow, looking at us, taking pictures. We dealt with gunshots. Not us ourselves, but sorry, that was a mistake. We heard from people that have heard gunshots every single week while they were down there. So we ourselves never dealt with gunshots, but people living down there deal with it on a weekly basis. Apartments are in terrible condition. There's frustration with the landlord. All the Whispering Pine tenants we spoke to are here illegally. Residents hide their children inside to keep them away from violence. Residents want stronger police presence. And then you just have a lot of like cultural animosity towards other cultures. Mexicans and Guatemalans blaming the Venezuelans blaming black gangs. I mean, it's just, and then on top of all that, you have just people making personally bad decisions. We spoke to a lady that was drunk at 10:30 in the morning. So that's what's happening actually down there.
And that 10:30 woman that's been drinking, there's always that question in the back of your mind. Are you starting early, or is this a holdover from last night? There's always that question about where are we going with this?
And the bigger question is, did she start her morning with Jeff and Bill?
Yeah.
Because if she starts her morning with Jeff and Bill,
that's going to be alcohol drinking.
She's
right
taking
there.
some shots.
Yeah, she is.
Get
Absolutely.
through it. All right. Joining us is Erin Real. Erin Real is a national correspondent with NBC News Radio and iHeart Radio as well. How much is in your wallet? If you want to know how America is doing, just look in your wallet. Erin Real, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. Yes, and it looks like, believe it or not, our wallets are a little heavier. That will lighten the mood. And I know that this is hard to hear when you know, trying to buy groceries and put gas in the car, and it's still so expensive. But I am on a personal crusade, along with many economists, to change the idea. We're using the term inflation and high prices interchangeably. They're different things. The truth is, inflation, we've done a pretty good job of beating it. The Fed is likely going to start lowering interest rates in actually just on September 17th and 18th. That's their next FOMC meeting. So yay, we got there. But the high prices, the high prices is what remains. But what we know is that wage data, if you adjust it for inflation using the consumer price index, we know that real median earnings, they're up about 3.5%. They're 3.5% higher than they were in 2019. At the beginning of this quarter. So we have the money. It's just the high prices that we're contending with that have not abated, which is making everything feel so painful.
And there's a confidence issue as well, isn't there? Are they as confident as they were maybe 5 or 6 years ago about the economy?
Well, believe it or not, this is kind of incredible. Right now, people are feeling a little bit better. So they're more optimistic. I wouldn't say confident, that we're just getting more optimistic. This is according to the University of Michigan's survey of consumers. They say that 401k balances are kind of helping this. They're mostly over $125,000, which is pretty great. And then if you own your home, you feel better because there's sky high prices right now. Now, if you don't own your home and you don't have a 401k, yes, it's wildly painful, but we're feeling optimistic, not necessarily confident.
And how does credit card debt fit into all this?
Oh, credit card debt. That's a big one. So what we do know is that the average credit card debt for those who carry a balance is $6,200 in the first quarter of this year. It's up from $5,800 in 2019. But here's the rub. Yes, it's a little bit more, but the interest rate that you have to carry with that new balance, it's close to 25%. It's way more expensive to borrow money right now. Money is expensive at the moment because interest rates are high. That is a problem. So addressing that with some sort of earnestness is like the first step to getting to a much better place.
Erin Real, national news correspondent for NBC News and iHeart Radio, joining Jeff and Bill live. Can we talk about the difficulty it has been to bring those prices back down? Because Jeff and I have talked about this quite a lot, that while inflation has abated somewhat, the prices that have risen, those gains are sticking because, not surprising to anybody, especially with big companies, they see that as a windfall profit. In fact, it's been described as windfall profits by people like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, even Procter & Gamble. What mechanism, if any, is there for a government, regardless of who sits in that White House? What mechanism could there be to bring those prices down? Because I can't for the life of me think that those large corporations, out of goodness of their heart, are going to say, absolutely, we should make less profit this quarter.
You nailed it. And that's kind of what Kamala Harris, and this isn't like an endorsement of Kamala Harris, but it just highlights the point that she's like talking about price gouging. Now that's interpreted to price fixing, which you don't want by her critics. But the idea that like Kroger's grocery store came out and said, yeah, we may have kept those prices too high for too long. Like they admitted to it, which is kind of incredible, frankly. And then you said, what mechanism does the government have? You can, if you are the leader, stick your departments on them, whether it be the SEC or the DOJ or the FTC, you name it, the alphabet soup of different departments that literally are designed, these regulatory bodies, to look into this very thing. That's the whole point. So you have them start probing and seeing if, yes, they're keeping prices high, not inflation, but the actual consumer providers, whether that be, AT&T or the grocery store, it doesn't matter. If they're keeping prices high because they can, that is the problem. And that's something that can be looked into by the Justice Department.
Yeah, I'm hoping that now with Dr. Pepper getting to the number 2 soda, it's going to change the price model for Pepsi. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that because they have got to chase them now. Now, I want to talk to you about a push and a pull. You talked about consumer confidence up. You talked about credit card debt increasing. 6,200 balance roughly right now is what people are carrying, but also our 401k balances are increasing. I saw something the last couple of weeks that we have the most number of 401k millionaires than we've ever had before, meaning more people ever in America have $1 million balance inside their 401ks than we've ever had before. How are we as consumers balancing the idea of not only saving more and putting in our 401ks, but also it seems that we are spending a little bit more on the credit side? How does that make sense? I would have assumed one or the other, not both.
So this is the tale almost every time there's economic turmoil. The rich get richer and the poor struggle the most. I say this all the time. It's expensive to be poor, in the sense that, it's just expensive to carry these debt burdens, where if you didn't have to have the burden, I get it. This isn't rocket science here, but the idea that what we're seeing is if you had any asset, if you owned a home, if you had anything in the market, if you had your 401k, it all grew. It all grew by a lot. And your actual net worth is now much higher than it was prior to the pandemic. If you didn't have any of those things, you're really struggling, because what also grew was the rent and insurance prices and all of that. So that's why the credit cards, there's some incredible stats about credit cards. So there are apparently about 590 million active credit cards in circulation, 40 million more than there were in 2019. And those accounts, they really help drive up our total outstanding credit card balance, which is now like just above $1.1 trillion. I fundamentally don't know how we're going to contend with that, particularly with interest rates so high. I don't know if you just do credit write-downs and so I don't know how that bill is going to get paid, if ever.
I don't know how anybody right now would pay that kind of a bill, especially when you're talking about 25%. That is usury levels of, borrowing money. You could go to the bank and get a short-term loan and have much better rates than what you're doing on credit cards. And I don't understand, what we're doing on that short-term transitory process that we're doing as far as money. It's ridiculous. And other question I've got for you, and again, I'm not asking you to take sides one way or another, but I want to talk to you economically. Erin Real, national news correspondent for NBC and iHeart Radio, joining Jeff and Bill. I want to talk to you about Kamala Harris's proposal for a tax credit for first-time home buyers. I see the merit behind it, but what I'm worried about, and I'm just talking about economically, not saying that it's a good program or a bad program, I'm just saying economically, if we offer that type of a tax credit, won't it, in some areas, increase the price of housing? And what I mean is, when we opened up things like more Pell Grants and more federal grants for education, for higher education, we saw the higher learning institutions raise their prices with that type of an increase, figuring, oh, these people have more money, they now are able to pay us more. I'm concerned that a tax credit for first-time home buyers isn't going to do what they think it will, because the market will absorb it. What are your thoughts on that?
Short answer, you're correct. Yes, there's always this blowback in ways that were unintended. But I think it's also, this first-time homebuyer credit is for very few people who will qualify for it. And for those who will qualify for it, you are like, the economic circumstances are such that it's not going to have as profound an impact if it is implemented as written today, as accurately as they anticipate. Now, again, this is as they anticipate. And I want to be clear, I have spent almost 20 years of my career now interviewing economists all the time. And I will be the first to say economists get it wrong, like way more frequently than I think they should. But it just depends. So it's not like everyone who's sitting in a rental right now will get $50,000 in, incentives and tax credits to go buy a home. It doesn't work like that. You have to have a lot of qualifications to get, like, a lot of elements to qualify for this loan.
Talking with Erin Real, national correspondent for NBC Radio and iHeart Media. Erin, thanks so much. I think we're going to be looking for this survey from the University of Michigan to likely pop up in tomorrow's debate. I bet it will. And you provided some good insight for us, so we appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Erin Real, again, from NBC News national correspondent, giving us some insights on an interesting study that came out recently. And if you want to read more about it, I'll post it on x.com/Jeff Hunt. The State of America's Wallet. Wall Street Journal provided some good coverage on this. I don't think the economy bill is in such a position that Trump could, it's not as bad as it used to be, to where Trump can fully, utilize it against Kamala Harris. Yeah. It's not great either.
No. So it's because of exactly what Erin Real talked about, is the separation in incomes that's happening. If you're on the top end, you have done very, very well. But if you're in that bottom third, it's been incredibly difficult. And she talks about a line that you and I both jumped on, being poor is expensive. And she's right, because some of that truism are things like, if you have different incomes, you may be able to go out and you need work boots. It's a great example. Your work boots may cost you $110 if you're on the lower income bracket, but those work boots may last you 7 months. If you can go and spend the $450 on the work boots when you're in the higher bracket, those things may last you 5 years. Yeah. And the problem is, you will spend more money replacing those $110 boots over the course of the 5 years than if you would have originally invested in the higher boots. And that's where it becomes more expensive to be poor. The other part is, even just in food, what is available to you to purchase, and especially fast food and those prepackaged meals can be much less expensive than buying the good stuff. We talk about, why are those families coming home and feeding their kids the crap food? Well, the bag of chips is probably 50 to 75% less expensive than a bag of dried fruit. And that's a difference that a family is going to make. So if you have to put something in the kids' bellies, it is going to be more economically efficient for you to give them the bad food. That's just where you have to make those purchasing choices. And that's why it becomes expensive to be poor. Yeah, it's tough. It's going to be rough.
How's your wallet doing? We'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. News survey out from the University of Michigan regarding consumers. They have more money in the bank than they did in 2019, even after adjusting for inflation, and just slightly less credit card debt relative to income. But they generally don't feel better off financially than they did 5 years ago, before the turmoil of the pandemic, inflation, and rising interest rates. Yeah. So give us a sense of where you stand on this. My family's not better off. It's been tougher on us. Things have gotten a lot more expensive. So I read this stuff, but I'm not going, I got a lot more money in my wallet. Tell me what you think. 696-1971. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. How's your wallet doing? University of Michigan survey of consumers came out over the weekend. Wall Street Journal writing about it. It might surprise you. People have more money in the bank than they did in 2019, even after adjusting for inflation, and just slightly less credit card debt relative to income. But what's killing people are the interest rates. You can't pay off those credit card debt. And apparently, Erin Real got it right. If you're wealthy, things are going pretty well for you. If you're not, things are actually hurting you even more. And with regards to 401k, Billy, I was thinking over the break.
Yeah.
I got my 401k, but I'm not going to be able to access it for 20 more years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I can understand why it could give some people a little bit of optimism. Yay, look at that money. But for me, it's like so far away.
Yeah, it is. It's a little tough. And I thought it was interesting when I read that there were, again, we go back, you missed it, that there are more 401k millionaires than we've ever had in America before. And I look at it as there's at least a segment of people that felt they can contribute a little bit more or can continue contributing, because that, in my experience, has been one of the first 3 or 4 things that people will cut back on if the budget gets a little tight. Because, as you say, that's money you're not going to see in 20 years. So they will dial down that contribution sometimes to 0 because, okay, even if it's only a little bit of scratch every couple of weeks, it does add a little bit of breathing room to the family budget. So I've seen that happen. Not the first thing that goes, but it is one of the top, 4 or 5.
How's your wallet doing? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. And do you have more confidence? That's another big thing that gets into this. People aren't necessarily confident, don't feel off better financially than they did 5 years ago. Let's go to the phone lines. Ben, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. My confidence is low, but I'm a tradesperson. I started in my own company 20 years ago, but I've been in a trade for 40 years. But I work hard, so I'm up early and have worked hard and taken risk. And so owning your own company makes a difference, but I'm just a blue-collar guy that's on steroids.
Ben, we really appreciate you because it's guys like you that make Colorado grow. If all the guys out there and their fancy degrees and sitting inside and behind the computers, things aren't going to get done. It's people
sitting
like you
behind
that
the
make things go.
microphone.
I know. I'm completely worthless for most of the economic development in the city. I know that one. I realize this. What I want to know from you, Ben, is based on your work over the past 4 or 5 years, how's it been? And what I mean by that is, one, just how's your workload been? Has it increased or decreased? And then also, what about your clients, the people you're working with? Do they seem like they're spending more, or are they more worried and they're cutting back on the type of stuff they ask you to do? What's it look like for you?
Well, a year and a half ago, I bid a 12-story building, and I should have never even bid it, but I got awarded it. But what I'm doing is writing a lot of checks to subcontractors to help me get it to the goal line. So it's a lot more stress. It feels like the NFL of business, and I'm basically a self-employed guy. But a company I used to work for is partnering with me. So I'm loading up and heading up there to get things done for this building going up in Rhino.
Nice, man. Now, what about those subs? Because I know that can be real tough. You go out there because you're putting your name and you're trusting the guys that you're subcontracting with.
Mm-hmm.
What's it been like for subs? How's the economy for them so far? Are you finding more higher skilled guys? Are you finding more of those fly-by-night guys?
We're having a meeting tomorrow about some of the bottlenecks in their company because those things happen. But they're a good company. They've been around 100 years. I used to be an employee there, but you also gotta push a little bit on certain areas of getting things done. And there's I won't mention it right now, but
that's probably fair.
But all that said is that you can do it if you dream big. I don't worry about money as much, but I am spending a lot. We're maxed out on our credit cards, but it's all a game about getting paid by the GC in a timely manner and then being able to keep ahead of that. it's still a risk.
Now, Ben, who are you voting for in this upcoming election?
If you want to share.
Well, Mr. Trump.
Why is that?
Well, because Donald Trump is level-headed as far as economics, about his policies on the border. I'm a pro-border guy, but I also see that there's problems with Maduro and all that. So I think I'm a church-going guy. Our church actually stepped up to help some of the migrants last January. We housed 30 of them in our church building out of compassion for humanity. But I am a pro-border guy, and so it's a mixed bag in this life. But we got to stop that first and foremost, because it's taking away people's jobs, and it's only going to be having to increase the burden for the poor, the people on the margins. I think about those people that they're being pushed out and are having a harder time because of what's coming.
Yeah, Ben, we were down at those apartment complexes in Aurora, and there's a few things happening that I think are heartbreaking. Number one, these are people that came to America believing kind of everything that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have provided, right? We have an open border. You're going to come here. Yeah, you might not be legal, but we're going to find a place for you, that type of thing. And they feel shut out. They feel like they were lied to. One woman in particular from Venezuela is wondering why she did this. She crossed 7 countries. She was abused by men crossing those 7 countries. She left her 3 kids back in Venezuela. She got all the way up here. And then she ran into essentially the fact that they're running out of money for these sanctuary city policies. So, for instance, Mike Johnston was going to put the illegal immigrants into apartment complexes for 6 months. Okay, the 6 months is over. Now what? Yeah. They are in these slums in Aurora right now because the city's run out of money for these sanctuary city policies. And, this open border policy that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have is not playing out well for them. So it's heartbreaking to see what's happening to these folks.
And the tension's gone up for everyone. Everybody's a lot more tense.
Yeah, no, Ben, you are exactly right. We heard Guatemalans angry at Venezuelans, Mexicans angry at Venezuelans, Venezuelans angry at blacks. Everybody's getting more angry and more intense with each other. Ben, great call. Thanks for what you do for this country, my friend, providing the jobs you do.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
And you are a great example of the people that we like to have here at the Jeff and Bill Show. A great example of our listeners, because you agree that there's a problem with the border, but that also doesn't mean that you get to abandon your compassion. So 2 things can be true at the same time. You can open your heart, you can open your church and take care of people in need, but it doesn't mean you're also happy with what's going on at the border at the time. Thank you so much. We hope to hear your voice again.
Let's go to John, Lakewood. John, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, John.
Good morning. I'd just like to, I'm 58 years old, so in my lifetime, I can claim a lot that I did all right.
I think, John, we got a bad connection there.
I'm going to put you on hold there.
We're going to see if we can reconnect with you. Look, I want to talk to you about my friend Dan Kaplis and Dan Kaplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. You show up with some guy you hired because you saw him on the side of a billboard bus going by. It's not going to necessarily send the best message to everybody. Dan Kaplis is with us on the values. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He's the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Why it also matters that you show up with Dan? Dan wins in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis is so trusted that Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases, but not just reserved for the rich and wealthy. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551. 5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. How's your wallet doing? Well, it's a mixed bag here. Wall Street Journal saying that according to the University of Michigan surveys of consumers, people are actually doing better than they were in 2019, even after adjusting for inflation. But it's the credit card debt, particularly the interest rates, that are driving people to have less confidence in this economy. Let's go quickly to the phones. John, Lakewood, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, John.
Good morning. I'll try to make this real fast. I'm not an economist, but I'm pushing 80. But I remember in my lifetime, I always had to work 4 hours to fill that tank up.
John, we're dealing with the same.
Okay. Yeah, your cell phone. And John, what John was saying when we talked off air is that he used to work a couple of hours in order to fill his gas tank up. And now kids, they're making the wage where they don't have to finish an hour worth of labor in order to fill up a gas tank based on the price. You know, because you got like $3.50 a gallon. And if it's $15 an hour wage. Yeah. And he's worried about the work ethic, that these kids are looking at the idea that they're being handed stuff too early and you don't have to grind in order to make sure you feel more entitled.
Yeah.
I think he's got a point there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, John, I appreciate the call.
Thanks,
Sorry
John. Give us a
that
call
the
back.
connection didn't work too well.
Twice, but give us a call back, man. Love to hear your voice again.
All right, Billy, let's give the people what they want.
Yes, it is that time of the morning where we make questionable decisions. It's what we call You Choose the News. I have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning to find really dumb stories about us humans in order to play this fake radio news game show. I have added some of my own takes as far as headlines and why are we doing this? Well, because the people in charge have no idea we're doing it. Yes, shh. It's a secret. They would never let us be this frivolous and just ridiculous on the air if they knew it was going on. So we appreciate your helping out.
One of the best moments was when my son goes, Dad, do you really not tell your bosses you're doing this?
No, we don't. We never told them we were starting this. We just did it one day. And I'm like, shh. I have been talked to a couple of times about it, though. So you got to play along with us, guys. You got to help me make sure this keeps going. Here are our headlines this morning for Jeff Hunt and Blake Olson. Headline number 1. Like advice, the wrong one can be fatal. Headline number 2, death is a mystery, a burial is a secret. Headline number 3, mistaken for takeout service. And headline number 4, a joy to be hidden, a disaster to be found. Mr. Hunt.
We'll start with death is a mystery.
Yes, death is a mystery. Burial is a secret. Some people that are fans of Stephen King may recognize that from Pet Sematary. And that's important because we are meeting Nikki Knight this morning. Nikki lives in North Yorkshire, England, and she was recently on holiday and got some horrible news in Turkey with her husband. Her beloved cat, Ted, passed away. It was awful. She's on vacation, and the neighbors actually showed up at the Ring door camera and said, "Look, we found Ted. Here's his black and white body, and he was in this pond right near the neighborhood, and he's passed away, and this is horrible." And Nikki was crushed. She made arrangements to have Ted's body cremated, and it was going to be ready for her to come back home. And she had to kind of cast a pall on the rest of the vacation. And then she got a call 4 days later from her sister. Ted just walked in the cat door. Yes, Ted was hungry and wanted to be fed. New Ted, old Ted, Stephen King, Pet Sematary Ted. After a little bit of investigation, Ted is alive and well. It was a very similar black and white marked cat, but not the same. But yes, Nikki tells the story that within 4 days, they went from horrible mourning to headed home and Ted's alive.
Like Lazarus cat.
Exactly. Just absolutely crazy. Okay. Now, Blake Olson in the news department, sir. Like advice, the wrong one can be fatal. Mistaken for takeout service, or a joy to be hidden, a disaster to be found.
Mistaken for takeout service.
Yes, mistaken for takeout service. Here we go to Las Vegas, and we are meeting 47-year-old Patricia Sierra because recently she went out and had a night, as you do in Vegas, a little drinky, a little party, and then she decided to, make some new friends, specifically at the affordable cremation and burial funeral home. Yes, early in the morning on August 27th, Patricia decided to break into the funeral home where she promptly tried to steal a coffin. Unbeknownst to her, there was someone inside the coffin that just had a viewing the day before. On the security footage, you can see her hit a bump outside the funeral service, the coffin tip over, and the body roll out. That's when she gave up the idea and ran away. Police had no idea who it was, but they did circulate pictures. 2 days later, they got a call from a concerned citizen saying, I think she's standing next to me at the grocery store. Yeah, and that was Patricia. They were able to arrest her and catch her. She says she had so many beers that day and a little bit of the margaritas. She had no idea she even did it. This was a blackout drunk type of thing. She has no recollection of it, but you can't necessarily mount a defense because that's her on the camera. Those are her fingerprints all over the place. So
amazing.
I know. It's crazy. Like,
only in Vegas.
Only in Vegas. You're like, I need to have a dead body in a casket. My own casket. Obviously, this is a great decision. Alcohol.
Wow. I was going to say, there's got to be that involved.
Oh, it is. Wow. We know this, that everyone makes the best decisions on alcohol. Always. That always happens. Everyone learns that in college. Alrighty. Final choice this morning, Mr. Hunt. Like advice, the wrong one can be fatal, or a joy to be hidden, a disaster to be found.
A joy to be hidden.
Yes, a joy to be hidden, a disaster to be found. This is a story out of New York. Recently, a New York TV helicopter crew spotted a missing boy. This is incredible. This 9-year-old boy left his Brooklyn apartment complex last week, right around 7 o'clock in the morning. He never showed up for school. Everybody went on alert. They sent out like an APB. We got to find this kid. The news chopper was in the air. They're going around and they They found him hiding on top of his own apartment complex. He was playing hooky. He didn't want to go to school, so he was hiding, but he was found by the newscopter.
Good job, newscopters.
Yeah, exactly.
We need more of them.
That's it. That's the end of your
News
Choose the
drones.
News.
All right. We'll continue with Kristi Burton Brown next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
In the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news and commentary with Blake Olson, Kristi Burton Brown, Executive Vice President of Advanced Colorado. They got some ballot initiatives. And today, all those numbers come out, right? Because you're going to have a lot of ballot initiatives to talk about. But they kind of switched from their original petition gathering to actual amendments and propositions. Those numbers will come out today. And we're working on a ballot guide. I will have a ballot guide for you all so you can navigate these. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ballot. 11, 12, 13, 14 ballot initiatives. Sorry, I didn't click next on the page. 14 ballot initiatives to be able to navigate. Welcome to a general election in a presidential year. Everything from prohibitions on trophy hunting and mountain lynx and bobcats to parole eligibility for crimes of violence. Get into all of this and more with Kristi Burton Brown in just a second, but let's check in on the news and commentary with Mr. Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. So when is that? When do you put that out?
I'll try to get it today or tomorrow.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. Can't wait. I need to see that.
Thank Jeff Hunt ballot guy.
I love it. I'll make you a logo. Do you have a logo?
I don't. Do you do logos?
I love doing logos.
Seriously?
Yeah,
I was literally thinking, you know what I need at the top of this? A logo.
You do. If I have time, I'll work on one. I'm not promising.
Yeah.
No. Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. 61 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 90 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast. Coming up, our top story.
Vice President Harris, still people believe that he can handle the economy better. What would you say to them that are listening to you right now? How could you change their minds that you could do it and even better?
Well, you should look at what I've accomplished thus far.
Kamala Khan doing a serious interview with Baby Girl, a podcast that a lot of proud Americans download, evidently.
The work that I've done, for example, that has resulted in Latino small businesses growing faster in this moment in history in these last 3.5 years than
I wonder if that has anything to do with 10 million, 15 million, maybe 20 million illegals crossing the border. I don't know.
ever before. It has a lot to do with the work that I have done to build up community banks and put more money into community banks so that those dollars can then get into the community and small business.
All right. First of all, she works so hard. She's always working. The community bank thing. We've heard that soundbite before. Community banks of the community, in the community, they're for the community. That's why they're called community banks.
Goldman Sachs, which is a very highly respected financial advisor and leader, has said that my plan will increase the gross national product and the and the GDP, and that Trump's plan would actually lower it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Vice President Harris and former President Trump will meet in person for the first debate tomorrow night on ABC at 7 Mountain. Get ready for 90 minutes of social issues, I'm sure. Half of it, I'm sure they'll talk about women's reproductive rights, even though there's no reproduction involved in abortions. She'll say Trump is going to have a national ban on abortions, which is a lie. He's made that clear about 1,000 times. It's up to the states. Bernie Sanders, in a roundabout way, tells us all that Kamala Khan is lying to try to win the election. No way.
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election. My own view is slightly different.
She's lying. Here's Trump over the weekend.
To every citizen who's sick and tired of the parasitic political class in Washington that sucks our country of its blood and treasure, November 5th will be your Liberation Day. November 5th this year will be the most important day in the history of our country.
Amen to that. A suspect is dead and a Colorado State Patrol trooper is recovering following the Saturday afternoon shootout on US 36 in Denver. Corporal Ty Simcox was doing paperwork while parked on the side of the highway when the suspect began shooting at him. He suffered a gunshot wound to his arm, but returned fire and killed the suspect. Simcox was treated for his injury at a local hospital. A manhunt prompted a shelter in place for parts of Rocky Mountain National Park and Estes Park on Sunday night. The closure was in the eastern part of the park, and police were looking for a white male who's approximately 5'9", 165 pounds. He's bald and was wearing blue jeans with no shirt or shoes. The shelter in place has been lifted, and he's still on the run after allegedly crashing and injuring 3 people, also going on a wild, high-speed, reckless journey down Trail Ridge Road, US 34, for over 45 miles, eventually crashed and ran towards some homes in Estes Park. Call 911 if you have seen this guy. All right, the city of Denver is considering using the vacant Rocky Mountain Prep Sunnyside School as a temporary shelter for illegal immigrants. While the flow of illegals into the city has slowed, officials still looking for places to shelter them. However, some people living near the building aren't happy about the idea, saying the shelter would disrupt a normally quiet neighborhood. The mayor's office says it'll work to address any concerns from the neighbors. Don't hold your breath on that one. Colorado flags will remain lowered until sunset to honor 2 CDOT workers who were killed last Wednesday on Highway 6 in Mesa County. The rookie debut of Broncos quarterback Bo Nix Sunday.
Nix evades the sack. Nix the fake. Another fake, and he spins into the end zone for the Denver touchdown.
Does it with his feet there. Nix in the air, 26 of 42, 138 yards. 2 interceptions, though. 26-20, Seahawks over the Broncos. Here's Nix.
It was a challenge for sure, to say the least. I thought they were a really good defense. I thought they played well in their scheme. I thought they, rallied to the football. It was tough to get some explosive plays, and I think when you have a hard time getting explosives, and you got to sustain drives, they can get you in 3rd and long and 3rd and just tough situations. So.
All right, I think he'll be fine. Have to be patient with him, but his rookie debut, not bad. Didn't win the game, though. 56 in Boulder, 57 in Castle Pines, 61 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies, comfortably warm September temperatures in the upper 80s to near 90 today, tomorrow, staying in the 80s Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Nights in the 50s. So a continuation of the nice September weather we had over the weekend. The only wrinkle is there might be in the coming days 1 or 2 isolated afternoon and evening late day showers and storms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, one of the few areas that us non-crazy libs can advance some policy in the state of Colorado is through the ballot process. And the good people over at Advanced Colorado have a number of ballot initiatives on this year's ballot that's actually going to make the state of Colorado better. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow for Advanced Colorado. Joining us is the Executive Vice President of Advanced Colorado, Kristi Burton Brown. You got a big one on school choice coming up.
That's right. Thanks, Jeff, for having us on again. And school choice, I think, is just one of the key issues that's the hallmark of Colorado. Colorado has the 3rd highest number of charter school students in the entire country. And support for school choice has been bipartisan for decades. It's just a long time thing we do in Colorado. We let parents pick the best school so that their kids can have the best chance at education. As you know, this right is under attack at the state capitol, with bills being run every year that would kind of eat away at the ability for charter schools to stay open, for parents to make other choices in education. So our ballot measure would put the right to school choice right into the Colorado Constitution. Super simple, super easy to understand. The ballot language is actually very clear, and voting yes would put it in our Constitution, preserve school choice for generations to come.
Now, Kristi, I disagree with this. I think that there should be government-run schools in every neighborhood that we force our children to attend. These schools should be co-opted and deliver only for what the teachers' unions ask them to do, and that the kids' success should come second, third, fourth to special interests that actually control the teachers' unions. What say you, Kristi Burton Brown?
Well, first, I'm guessing that's not your actual view, but there are certainly a number of people in the teachers' union, and that is what they fight for. They think every kid should be stuck in their neighborhood school, whether that school is doing well, whether they're doing terrible, whether it's somewhere in between. And what this initiative would do is recognize the reality that most parents and families want to live in. And that reality is that parents get to evaluate the school their kid goes to. And if they think it's high performing and great and they're happy with their neighborhood public school, great. Let your kids stay there and let them succeed in that school. But if your kid is better served by a charter school, a private school, by homeschooling them, by taking advantage of Colorado's open enrollment laws that allow you to cross district lines and go to a different school for your kid, well, then right now in Colorado, you have the right to do all those things because we believe one size doesn't fit all and that no child should be forced into any school. So by putting this in the state constitution, it takes that ability and preserves it for the future, because when it's in our constitution, the only people who can change it are the people themselves. That is the power of putting something in the Constitution.
Talking to Kristi Burton Brown, Executive Vice President at Advance Colorado. Now, Kristi, I do believe that this is a fair critique because I've seen it happen in our own lives. At our neighborhood school, it wasn't going so well. I think it had 6 principals in 5 years or something like that. It was a lot of turnover. So the most engaged parents, the parents that were really on top of their kids' education and paying attention, well, they went and looked for greener pastures, which then emptied the school of those types of students, those types of parents. And yeah, the charter school over there, where all the parents went, that was doing really well. Now the neighborhood school was suffering because of the lack of parental engagement from the most engaged, serious parents when it came to monitoring their kids' education, making sure that the school was on top of it, kind of the greatest advocates within the school. So what's your response to that concern?
Sure. And Jeff, I think there's a couple answers to that. First of all, that already is allowed in Colorado. So you're not making something like that more possible or more likely by voting yes on putting the right to school choice in the Constitution. It's basically recognizing that allowing parents and families that kind of a choice is something we already do in Colorado. And it's just making sure parents get to continue to do it. So for one thing, I think it's important for people to understand the amendment preserves the rights we already have rather than inventing new ones. But secondly, I think a situation like that, there's certainly some people who then would continue to go to the neighborhood school who'd be concerned about the quality of education there or the lack of parental engagement. But it creates innovation and competition. And in any other system of life, if we want people to succeed, if we want better results, we push innovation and competition. And the more choices people get to make, usually the better every single piece of the system gets. So I think being afraid of competition in the education system is exactly what makes some of our schools not high performing and not work for kids. So I'd argue that if you have a really great charter school in a neighborhood that all the parents are sending their kids to, well, then the neighborhood school, the people who run that should take another look and say, what is so good about that charter school? What are parents wanting? And how do we put that in this school so that there can be 2 successful schools? But, you know, sometimes that takes thinking outside the box. And I think we should encourage and push that.
Now, I've noticed that on these school rankings that come out each year, best performing schools in Colorado, a lot of them are charter schools. How are government-run schools doing versus charter schools?
Yeah, so out of the top 10 high-performing high schools in Colorado, 7 of the top 10 are charter schools, and that's high school specific. But when you look across the board, you'll see charter schools that don't perform well at all, and you'll see some that are top of the list. charter schools are run differently. There is a lot of parental engagement. And so you see a spectrum just like you do with neighborhood public schools. As a whole, charter schools tend to perform better just because there is more engagement, more innovation, more competition. They can be more specifically targeted to what a specific group of parents and families wants to study. If it's a classical education or perhaps focused on science or the arts, sometimes when those things are possible, then students get more engaged in the learning and they enjoy it and they actually do better. As a whole, in the public school system, which would include neighborhood and charter schools, kids are only reading and doing math in Colorado, like only about 40% of them are doing it at grade level. So there is a lot of improvements that need to happen in the public school system in particular here in Colorado. I think that's something important to note, is that we have to continue to push for reform, for transforming education options if we want our kids to do better.
Talking with Kristi Burton Brown, Executive Vice President of Advanced Colorado. So who's opposed to you in this ballot initiative to constitutionalize school choice?
That's a great question, Jeff. Right now, very, very few people are opposed to it because Colorado loves choices. They love options. And in education, choices and options have been a bipartisan hallmark for decades. Roughly 70% of Coloradans, when they're polled, say, we want to put school choice in the Constitution of Colorado. But as you might imagine, the union is opposed to it, the teachers union. There's also some people who, and I think the union is the one doing this, question, is supporting school choice not good for racial diversity in Colorado? And so that is a point that I really want to hit on. I was just looking at statistics from the Pew Research Center yesterday, and charter schools across the nation, and specifically in Colorado, are actually more racially and economically diverse than your traditional neighborhood schools. So if there are people out there that say, hey, we need to help minority students, we need to help poor students, the best way to help them is actually supporting school choice, because charter schools serve more of them percentage-wise in Colorado than the neighborhood schools. The only other objection I've heard to this amendment, Jeff, is people saying, oh, hey, by giving the right to school choice to kids, because it does say every child shall have the right to K through 12 school choice, does that hurt parental rights? And so I really want to emphasize that it absolutely does not. And this amendment would actually strengthen parental rights in Colorado by putting them into the state constitution. Our measure also says that every parent shall have the right to direct the education of their child. That is a key piece, and make sure that school choice actually lies with the parent and not the government.
Now, Kristi Burton Brown, could we get to a place, this is where I'd like to be, of total backpack funding, which means the money that the state would give to the public school actually follows the student wherever they would like to go. So, for instance, in our family's life, we get to pay taxes, and then I get to write another check to my children's Christian private school, because that's the education we want for our kids to embrace. And so I get to pay twice for our kids' education. I think that it should follow the student. If the family wants to send their kid to religious education, the government, whatever check they were going to write for that public school, should follow that kid wherever the parent wants them to go. Could we get to a place someday in this state where that backpack funding takes place?
You know, Jeff, and I identify with what you're saying, because my husband and I homeschool our kids, and then I also was homeschooled. So in my family, it's been like 2 generations of paying taxes and paying for our kids' education. So I definitely get where you're coming from there. And I think the idea of funding following the student rather than the system is growing in popularity across the nation, including in Colorado. If you look at statistics, the West, actually, which includes Colorado, is a little bit behind the rest of the nation as far as, you know, how popular the idea of education savings accounts, tax credits are. We're just a little bit behind the rest of the nation, but still over 65% of people in the West want funding to follow the student. So I think it's an interesting question that probably one day will be addressed in Colorado. We ran a ballot measure through Title Board that would have done that, put funding attached to the student instead of the system. We decided not to pursue that on the ballot this year because we were confident that the right that needs to be established right now is the right to pick your kid's school. The right to have school choice has to go in our Constitution. So any future attacks by the legislature are blunted, and the legislature can't attack that right. We believe that was priority number one. So that's what this measure would do. And I guess we'll see what other people decide to do in the future. For now, it's universally popular in Colorado across the political spectrum to preserve the right to school choice, put that choice with parents, not the government. And that's what we'll do this year on the ballot.
Kristi Burton Brown, Executive Vice President, Advance Colorado, joining Jeff and Bill live. I'd like to discuss that a little bit, because I don't know. I think the economic principle of the idea of the backpack funding following kids to private school isn't going to get to the result we believe it is, just based on supply and demand economics, that it's going to end up being a subsidy for richer private schools. But we can put that aside, because that's not what the ballot initiative is dealing with. The question I have, I like the idea of school choice. I firmly believe that parents absolutely should be able to choose what school they want to get their child to. Now, we have had open enrollment in Colorado for well over a decade. And the question I have, and this is what I can't get my head around, if we've introduced this competition already into the public school system, why are we not seeing the non-charter schools, the traditional, and I like the term that Jeff uses, the government-run schools, why are we not seeing their levels come up? Because they're already, educational achievement levels, because they're already facing that competition. I thought I was given the impression that competition would raise the ability of all schools. Why are they still lagging behind, in your opinion?
So I think while competition and innovation certainly encourages improvement, it doesn't require it. And so I think you still have to have people in the other school and in the other system actually innovate and actually compete. And I think right now the teachers union often controls that system and doesn't allow for there to be that innovation. And they kind of, stick it in the mud, so to speak, and say, we're going to keep doing what we've always done, and it isn't working. And they, instead of actually saying, hey, what are parents looking for? Why are they sending their kids to a charter school instead? Homeschooling is growing in Colorado, higher than any other school choice method. Like, why are parents choosing to do that instead of putting them in the neighborhood public school? They don't really ask those questions and innovate, and I largely think it's because of the control of the teachers union. I think there's a lot of amazing teachers out there who would love to do something different that works for kids, but the union at the top isn't allowing that innovation. So that's a big problem. Yeah, another big problem is the wait list for charter schools. There are so many districts that flat out won't let charter schools come in. And so that's why there's no competition.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying about the teachers union, because I agree with you on that one. I feel that, at least in Colorado, and I think we can expand it nationally, teachers unions are more about finding the mean rather than finding the achievement. And what I mean by that is that inside the classroom, they're not trying to encourage all the kids to expand their knowledge. They're spending a lot of time keeping the kids that are behind, trying to catch them up into the class. And that puts a restriction on the higher achievers and the higher learners. They are told they have to slow down their pace around the track so that everybody else can catch up. And anybody like Jeff that's been a cross-country runner knows you can't set pace for everybody on the team. Well, every individual has a different pace.
I mean, look, you just got different parents too.
Yes.
Right? Like you have some parents that are going to go through every little aspect of the kid's education, all parts of the curriculum. They're going to go to student parents nights. They're going to show up at every parent teacher meeting. They are super engaged. And then you just got parents that are like, whatever, dropping you off at 20 minutes late to class. We've talked about this. There's that handful of parents that are totally irresponsible because mama wants to get back to the wine in their home.
I can give
right?
you, anecdotally, I can give you a direct example. I have a family member that works inside. We know this.
Yes.
Several family members that work inside the school system. One of my family members, when checking on whether or not this note was sent from the parent to release this kid early from school, the parent yelled at them.
Right.
For the school following up to make sure the note was legit, the parent was mad at the school for providing that level of customer service. When I'm looking at that thinking, wait, you're telling me that what you feel should happen is if your child shows up with a note, even if it's written in crayon or cut out with those little letters like the ransom notes in magazines, we just accept it. I mean, why would you turn around and yell at the school to verify this is? But that's a different type of parent.
And these teachers have to deal with those kids, right? And they end up. I've heard this before, and I will tell you, as someone who coached a lot of teams, at the end of the day, it always comes down to the parents. It always does. You got that kid that's really out there, really a problem on the team that you, as a coach or as a teacher, have to spend 80% of your time dealing with, it always comes back to the parents. So these government-run schools, they got to take everybody, right? Doesn't matter. You live in the neighborhood, we're going to take you. So, I get that it's not always the teacher's faults. It's not the school's faults. They got to deal with these parents. But at the same time, in the midst of all this, because it's a complicated issue, you have special interests driving a lot of issues into these schools.
Oh, yeah.
And they have the lobbyists. They show up down at the Capitol. They get their little special agenda passed into law, and then they get to push that curriculum on the kids. And it's about winning political battles, not necessarily preparing kids. Like we say this all the time as conservatives. You have students coming out of these government-run schools. They're like little leftist activists, but can't hit their math targets, their English targets, their grammar targets at all. And that's frustrating as well. So in the midst of all this, what do? I think you secure choice for parents to be able to put their kids in the best schools they possibly can. And it increases competition. So Kristi Burton Brown, Advanced Colorado. What is the name? What is the number? Do you guys have the number on the ballot yet?
Oh, we just actually got the numbers on the ballot the other day. Let me actually pull it up for you. We have law enforcement initiatives too that are 128 and 130. And then let's see, this one it's Amendment 80. So yes on Amendment 80 would put school choice in the Colorado Constitution. And
I'm looking now at the official Colorado Democrats ballot guide that came out from Mr. Shad.
How much free stuff are we getting?
Right. Well, in this case, they are opposing Amendment 80.
Surprise.
So the Colorado Democrats are a no on that. They are a no on your parole eligibility for crimes of violence too. And then
no truth in sentencing for them.
And they took no position on funding for law enforcement. Proposition 130.
Which I've actually been giving Shad a hard time about because he actually specifically said they took no position on law enforcement. Like, and this is funding for law enforcement, $1 million death benefit if an officer dies in the line of duty. And he said, well, we don't support politically motivated unfunded mandates. That
Wait,
is
what?
ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. That's half the Democrat proposals. What the hell? Unfunded mandates. That's half what they do. Oh my God, I can't believe that.
I know. Yeah, that's their position.
But if it's to the cops, no. If it's to illegal immigrants, then absolutely. So you all have three ballots, three initiatives on this year's ballot, right?
That is correct. That is correct. The funding for law enforcement, truth in sentencing, and school choice.
And let's go through real quick. Truth in sentencing, parole eligibility for crimes of violence, Proposition 128. Tell the folks what that does.
Yeah, so this is actually our most popular ballot measure, extremely popular across the board, despite what the Democrat Party wants to say. They're out of touch with their voters. Democrats who are polled love this initiative. And truth in sentencing would say if you're a violent criminal in Colorado, and we're literally talking about kidnappers, rapists.
We give you an apartment complex in Aurora? Is that what the ballot does?
No, it does not do that. But it's talking about the worst of the worst criminals, just other than first-degree murder because they're already subject to this. But every other really bad crime in Colorado, if you commit it right now, you get out after serving about 46% of your sentence. That's what happens in Colorado. We have the fourth worst recidivism rate in the nation. These violent offenders are getting back out on the streets, reoffending, hurting kids, hurting women, and killing people, literally. And so what this initiative would do is say, actually, before you're eligible for parole in Colorado, you actually have to serve at least 85% of your sentence and stay in jail, stay off the streets. That's why it's called truth in sentencing, so that the victims and their families actually know these people were sentenced to this amount of time, and they're actually going to serve it. They're not going to be back out on the street after serving less than half the sentence.
Great. I'm glad you all are running that ballot initiative. And then let's do the other one, 130 for funding for law enforcement. We got that one provides the death benefit, right?
It does. And it is a $350 million fund, one-time fund that the legislature is required to take out of the general fund and put into a law enforcement specific fund, because we all know they don't spend enough money on police officers and public safety across the state. They spend it on their pet projects instead. And so this is what, why the Democrats don't want to take any position on it, because they'd rather take that money and spend it on their priorities. And we're saying voters across the state have a public safety priority that isn't being met. to put $350 million into a fund without raising taxes, no new taxes. Legislature already has this money, and put it there to raise salaries and hire more police officers across the state. And then in addition to that, it creates the fund for the $1 million death benefit. If a police officer, firefighter, or other first responder dies in the line of duty, their family would get $1 million death benefit. Because right now, all they get is 70% of the person's pension, which is a very actually low amount for the family to survive off of.
Yeah, especially if they are new inside the service. If they are so unfortunate the first 2 to 3 years, that value of the pension is going to be so small. I mean, they're barely going to be able to afford to go to the grocery store for a week based on that money. And that's ridiculous, given the fact that these are members of our community that raised their arm, took an oath, went through training, put a badge on their chest, and decided to go out there and protect you and I. It's crap that we
and I think this is a good start, but still, if I had a family member come to me and say, I'm going to be a cop, I'd say, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it, because of the liability issues that you are going to have to make a decision within a split second. And you could, one way or the other, even though you're trained, even though you had no intention of harming somebody, you're not a racist or anything like that, but because of the decision you make, you may end up spending the rest of your life in prison. I think it's a good step in the direction of recruiting people back into law enforcement, but I think most people are looking at the liability issues of becoming a police officer and going, that's too high at this point.
Well, and that is why, like Aurora Police Department had a number of people just quit and change careers. That's happened across the state, and that is a state law that is really tough. There's been a few localities that have actually changed it and said, no, we're going to accept the liability on behalf of our police officers. I think that's a good answer right now in Colorado. But yeah, that's a bad law. But this is saying, hey, there's still so many people who do choose to go into that career and do want to protect our communities. So let's get them the higher salaries, let's get them the training, and let's get them the death benefit. Hope they never have to use it, but if they do, let's make sure it's there for their family.
Kristi Burton Brown, Executive Vice President of Advance Colorado. They've got 3 ballot initiatives out. There's a total of, I think, 14. We're going to get all the numbers today. I'm going to put together a ballot guide, the Jeff Hunt ballot guide. We'll see how Billy feels about it.
I'm doing one, but it's a coloring book.
It's written on a napkin.
Yes,
at
exactly.
Bar Trivia.
Yep, that's exactly it.
According to Advance Colorado and their ballot initiatives, they are recommending a yes on Proposition 128, parole eligibility for crimes of violence, a yes on funding for law enforcement, that's Proposition 130, and a yes on Amendment 80, school choice in K through 12 education. As I said at the very beginning, thank God for Advance Colorado. Yes. Kristi Burton Brown, Michael Fields doing good work to improve the state. Kristi, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good Monday.
Thank you both so much.
Take care. Bye.
What do you think of these ballot initiatives? Sound good to me. I'm going to take a look at the blue book and dive into these, and I'll give you my official recommendations on all 14 of the ballot initiatives. But where do you land on these 3 in particular? Yes on constitutionalizing school choice in K through 12 education. Yes on parole eligibility for crimes of violence that restricts the ability of some of these more violent criminals to get out early. And yes on providing some important funding, $350 million for law enforcement in the state of Colorado. Give me a call.
No new taxes. That's important on that one of the law
That's
funding.
Exactly right.
They're taking it out of the general fund where it would allow Democrats to do whatever they want with it.
Yep.
And they could spend it anywhere else. All they're doing is saying this pool of money is going to be set aside to accomplish this. That's it. There's nothing new coming out of your wallet. It's just making sure that there's enough money to take care of the men and women in blue that are taking care of you and I.
303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Look, if you're like me, you know that living in Colorado means dealing with unpredictable weather, hail, snow, heavy winds, you name it, we've got it. That's why you need a roofing company that you can trust, and that's Colorado's Best Roofing. We have Steven in, I think, later this week. Got to meet this guy the other day. Brand new advertiser to the Salem Media Group. I don't even know where to start. This guy is great. Wonderful family. Built this company to provide quality services, right? You know, there's those fly-by-night guys that come in. We got a roof, fix your roof, that type of thing. That's not them. They are local, family-owned, and have served the Denver area for over 12 years. They understand our unique climate and know how to build a roof that lasts. Whether you need a repair after a storm or a whole new roof, Colorado's Best Roofing has got you covered. And here's what I really love. They offer a free, no-obligation inspection. They'll come out, take a look, give you an honest assessment, no pressure, no gimmicks, just straight talk from the pros. Plus, they work with your insurance company to make sure you get the coverage you deserve. So don't wait until the next big storm hits. I remember, Billy, we had a roof in Virginia that leaked, and we couldn't fix it, and they couldn't figure it out. And so every big storm, I knew exactly where to put the little pot.
Oh my gosh! Now, okay, younger Billy, when I was involved in summer theater, and this is an adult theater that I was involved in the summer, and I had a couple of small parts during the adult plays and did some kids theater. There was a leak in the roof. So during a specific performance, if I was working in an usher, I had to climb into the rafters and set up the bucket to catch it so it didn't drip onto the stage. So I was sitting up in the rafters the whole time. The fun part was during intermission when I'd get to climb down, empty the bucket, and then get back up there. Yeah, so I get it. And I love the fact that Colorado's Best Roofing is now here with Jeff and Bill because, again, they're a Colorado company and they know what it takes based on our weather. A lot of these transitory guys come in and out, and they're going to use the cheapest quality materials and get whatever crew they can just to make it look like they're doing the right work. These are people that have been here. They've set up roots in Colorado. And so you know they're going to be here today and they're going to be here for you tomorrow. The other part is the fact they work with the insurance company. You shouldn't have to deal with that headache. They have the expertise, so they will navigate it and they will make sure that your roof is covered because they know what the insurance company is looking for. They know how to dot the I's and cross the T's to make sure that it is a seamless, easy process. These are the guys that we trust.
And you know, when it comes out there, you have the guys that are like Walmart, fast, big volume, all
That's
that
what
stuff,
they wanna do,
or the craftsmen. And these are the craftsmen when it comes to your roof. So give Colorado's Best Roofing a call today at 303-797-7663. That's 303-797-7663, or visit them at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Trust the best, Colorado's Best Roofing. Steven's going to be joining us later, I think, in the week. And
I think Wednesday,
when
maybe.
he and I went out to lunch the other day, you know what we talked about?
What? What'd you talk about?
How Jesus Christ changed his life.
No.
Yep.
Okay.
Pure testimony guy, went through some
attention.
really bad areas of his life, and he cried out to the Lord, and it changed his life.
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what? My company is a gift to God. I'm going to do this to honor God. That's what my company's all about.
Oh, come on. Now, who are you going to trust? Who are you going to trust? The guys that are running like the Walmarts, the Targets, the big box stores, or the guy that has gone through the struggles that you have, our listeners, that I have, that Jeff has, and has come out on the other end, changed his life through the grace and glory of God, and now is building a solid Colorado company that's been around for more than a decade, and they're going to do it right. Come on. Who are you going to trust? It's an easy call. It's an easy call.
Perfect. That's great. All right. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Not fair on a Monday. Friday's fun.
It's just like torture on a Monday.
Yes, it's like, because this is the thing when you're warming up for that weekend. This is where it's the good feelings, and now this is a reminder. The work
Are you
week
more
just
of
started.
a Friday night guy or a Saturday night guy?
At this age, I can't be either, honestly, because of my work schedule and everything else. If I had to pick, it'd be Saturday night. But it is
I'm a
hard.
Friday night guy.
Yeah.
So if you ever go camping,
Yeah.
and you camp in those big loops with lots of people,
Oh,
the
yeah,
crazy night is always Friday night.
Yeah, it is.
It
Yeah,
is.
Yeah,
People
that's true.
they roll in, they're full of energy. They'll go till 1 or 2 in the morning having a good time. And then you realize you wake up camping, you're getting up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning because the sun's
Yeah.
hitting you. You can't
Yeah.
sleep in late.
No, not at all.
So then Saturday night, you're not pulling the late night. So I'm
No.
more of a Friday night.
Story of bad decisions. Someday we will share all those. Bad decisions you made late on a Friday, late on a Saturday. Yeah. And nothing good ever happens between 11 o'clock and 3 a.m. in the morning. No.
So-
but fun stuff happens. Not good stuff. Fun stuff, though. The best stuff happens that time, but not good.
Oh my goodness. I don't even want to start about
know.
some of my camping stories.
You
at
and me both,
midnight.
my friend. You and me both. So many weird decisions.
I'm going to give a tip of the hat to a man named Jonathan Lee who got me out of some trouble. All right. So
Hey, nice job, Jonathan.
we just wrapped up talking with Kristi Burton Brown about a ballot initiative that Advanced Colorado is supporting that's going to constitutionalize school choice in the state of Colorado. We'd love to hear from you. Are you going to support it? 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. I'm an easy yes on this. Look, if you're considering selling your home, go with the team that's not only going to give you top level service, but will also help you earn more from the sale of your home than any other agent. Gay Ribble's proven to get more for her sellers because they have ready buyers looking for a home in your area. They don't just make this claim. They can sit down and actually show you their list of over 14,700 buyers. This gives you an immediate advantage. Sure, you can hire any agent to sell your home, but isn't it all about how much you're going to put in your pocket after closing? The Empower Home team specializes in making sure you make the most amount of money. They will sell your home at your price, or Gay will buy it guaranteed. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to the phone lines. Jay Sterling, good morning.
Good morning, you guys. I got a funny story to tell you. So my grandma and grandpa and other couple farmers out here, back in the day, they said that they would run 2 horses up about 15, 18 miles up to a bar. They'd go dancing every Saturday, not every Saturday night, but Saturday nights. And the horses, so they didn't have to worry about coming back home. The horses knew the way back home.
That is great.
But they did that for years, you know. I mean,
does that count as a drunk driving because the horse is a vehicle? No, maybe. Can you be driving while horse riding?
Back in the day, I don't think you could.
Yeah.
but yeah, you guys would have to tell me that. But they played it safe, I guess, is my overall point. So the horses knew where to go home because they did it every Saturday night. But where were they at Sunday morning?
Church.
You know it.
That is fantastic.
If that ain't country, you kiss my butt.
That is the line of the morning, Jay. You win. That's fantastic.
Jay.
Thank you.
I know you can get in trouble for riding a bike while intoxicated. Yeah. I don't know if you can get in trouble for riding a horse while you're intoxicated. Tell one of our sheriff friends.
Pulling the wagon. They're pulling the wagon.
Oh, that's
so they were just sitting in the hay in the back of the wagon.
Oh, yeah. I don't think you can get in trouble at all there. You're not even piloting it.
You wake up back home in the morning in the back of the wagon.
Well, obviously, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there personally, but who knows? They got off the wagon and went in the house, obviously. But...
Oh, that is fantastic. Best horses ever.
Yeah, those are good horses.
I'll tell you something else. If my grandpa, if him or my uncle didn't get the cows out of the pasture and move them back home for winter, if he was within 5 to 7 days late, because he did it every year, of bringing them back home, they would break through the fence and go back home 2 miles.
Oh, no
cows.
way.
They knew that.
Cows, 80 cows, 80 head of cows.
That is crazy.
If he was within, I don't want to over exaggerate it, but within somewhat of a week difference of bringing them back home to the, where the barn was at and everything else, where the corrals were at.
That is funny. Those are well-trained animals. Find their way home. Jay, great call.
Great story.
Thanks for starting us off Monday morning that way.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Oh, the horses took it home from the country dancing.
Now there's that self-driving. We still want another car. That's exactly what we want.
That's awesome. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City on the Monday, September 9th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You won the lottery. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news commentary with Blake Olson, Bush stays silent on how he will vote in 2024. Bush had previously supported the campaigns of John McCain and Mitt Romney. I've got some words for George W. Bush on this one. Time to get in the game. I understand that Dick Cheney has got the personal little battles between Liz Cheney and Donald Trump, all that stuff. But come on, man. If you're willing to get behind McCain and Romney, get behind Bush. I was a journeyman. I did it. I stood there in line outside of Fairfax, Virginia, to pull the lever for John McCain. I worked for Mitt Romney. My wife was an intern for George W. Bush. We've always been on the team. We fight for whoever's at the top of the ticket. The fact that he's not willing to, give me a break. All right, I'm going to get more into this, but let's have news and commentary first with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Yeah, just because President Trump insulted his brother Jeb. What a bozo. Still doing it. Uniparty garbage. I can't stand that.
I mean, this is... All right, I'm going to get unleashed on this one because this makes the argument that there is a uniparty. When you do crap like this, when Dick Cheney doesn't just say, well, I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump, but goes all the way to voting and supporting Kamala Harris.
He's worse than a left. He's worse than a Democrat. It's horrible.
How do you look at Kamala Harris and go, as someone who is ever a Republican, she is the most progressive, liberal U.S. senator that we've ever had.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm going to pull the lever for that. God. You make the argument. You absolutely make the argument that there's a uniparty and, and Donald Trump is right to fight it.
Yeah. And all these years we defended him. Come on. Put the country first. Don't put your little family squabbles first.
Seriously, what is Dick Cheney? Is he Darth Vader? You remember for
I think he is.
8 years. For 8 years, the Democrats, this guy's literally Satan. Darth Vader. He's the worst thing ever. Yeah. And now he comes over and supports them. What do you do as a Democrat? For all those Democrat callers that normally call in, I'd love to hear from you. How do you feel about Dick Cheney coming and going, Kamala Harris is my gal?
Yep. His first name represents him well. 64 and sunny in the Denver area, expecting a high of 90 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Colorado has the third highest number of charter school students in the entire country. And support for school choice has been bipartisan for decades. It's just a long time thing we do in Colorado. We let parents pick the best school so that their kids can have the best chance at education.
Kristi Burton Brown advanced Colorado on with the fellas last hour. And as school choice and charter schools are under attack by the left, there's a ballot measure that will allow Coloradans to protect their choice when it comes to education for their children. Of course, the teachers union doesn't like it, but Brown says, hey, this is all about the students and parents' choice.
What this initiative would do is recognize the reality that most parents and families want to live in. And that reality is that parents get to evaluate the school their kid goes to. And if they think it's high performing and great and they're happy with their neighborhood public school, great. Let your kids stay there and let them succeed in that school. But if your kid is better served by a charter school, a private school, by homeschooling them, by taking advantage of Colorado's open enrollment laws that allow you to cross district lines and go to a different school for your kid, well, then right now in Colorado, you have the right to do all those things because we believe one size doesn't fit all and that no child should be forced into any school.
Makes sense to me.
Never let anyone take your joy from you. I call myself a joyful warrior. Yeah. Right? Never let anyone take your joy from you.
I'll try to take it. Kamala Khan doing a joyful, serious interview with Baby Girl, a podcast that a lot of high information voters listen to.
Vice President Harris, still people believe that he can handle the economy better. What would you say to them that are listening to you right now? How could you change their minds that you could do it and even better?
Well, you should look at what I've accomplished thus far. The work that I've done, for example, that has resulted in Latino small businesses growing faster in this moment in history in these last 3.5 years than ever before has a lot to do with the work that I have done.
Yeah, and Dick Cheney agrees. Harris and former President Trump debate tomorrow night on ABC at 7 Mountain. It's ABC, stands for always backing communism. Hold on tight. Get ready for 90 minutes of what are you going to do for this group? What are you going to do for that group? For that race, for that sex, for that gender? Stand by. Here we go. All right, this cracks me up here. Bernie Sanders, he knows Harris has flip-flopped more than an Olympic gymnast.
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election. My own view is slightly different.
Yeah, she's lying. Former President Trump over the weekend.
To every citizen who's sick and tired of the parasitic political class in Washington that sucks our country of its blood and treasure, November 5th will be your Liberation Day. November 5th this year will be the most important day in the history of our country.
Well, a Colorado trooper shot on the job is recovering at home. He was struck in the arm Saturday on Highway 36 in Westminster. Ty Simcox was parked in the median and doing paperwork when state police say that a man fired at him as he drove by and then pulled over, got out, and unleashed a hail of bullets. The trooper fired back and killed the suspect. CSP says that he was targeted and looked at the face of evil. Boy, there's no doubt there, but came out on top. Thankfully, Governor Polis said he spoke to Simcox, calling him courageous and brave. A manhunt prompted a shelter in place for parts of Rocky Mountain National Park and Estes Park Sunday night, but it has been lifted. Police looking for a 5'9", 165-pound white bald man who was running around with no shirt or shoes on, sped like a bat out of hell down Trail Ridge Road, allegedly crashing and injuring 3 people somewhere along the way, eventually crashed and then ran towards some homes in Estes Park. If you have seen this jackwagon, call 911. Let's see, what do we have next? Your legal update for today. The city of Denver is considering using the vacant Rocky Mountain Prep Sunnyside School as a temporary shelter for illegal immigrants. Officials still looking for places to shelter people. However, some people living near the building aren't too happy about the idea, saying the shelter would disrupt a normally quiet neighborhood. The mayor's office says that it'll work to address any concerns for the neighbors. Colorado flags will remain lowered at half-staff until sunset to honor 2 CDOT workers who were killed last Wednesday on Highway 6 in Mesa County. Broncos at the Seahawks on Sunday.
Walker's starting to lead on this defense. Walker breaking free. Touchdown.
Seattle wins it 26-20. Rookie quarterback Bo Nix, 26 of 42, 138 yards, 2 interceptions. Here's Nix.
It's tough. You got to give them credit, but we battled and we continue to fight. And that's, those are the emotions of today. That we got a competitive team. We got a team that's not going to quit, and we're going to put everything on the line. And no matter if it's, ugly start, we're going to continue to find ways to finish.
All right, 58 in Superior, 62 in Parker, 64 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies, comfortably warm September temperatures in the upper 80s to near 90 today, tomorrow, staying in the 80s Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Nights in the 50s. So a continuation of the nice September weather we had over the weekend. The only wrinkle is there might be in the coming days 1 or 2 isolated afternoon and evening late day showers and storms. Weather is sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
I'm going to do my best because I know some of the liberal callers don't like it when I get to work. But I have some words for Dick Cheney and George Bush here. Here was Dick Cheney on Friday afternoon. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Statement from former Vice President Dick Cheney. He released this statement about the 2024 presidential election. In our nation's 248-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. All right, can we just stop there? I just want to I got to ask this question. There is no individual, really, no individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. When someone makes a statement so sweeping as that, to me, it poisons the well for anything else that's going to come afterwards. Like, really? How about the people that gave the Soviets the nuclear bomb manual?
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, can you really say there's never been an individual who's a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump?
I think this is, I mean, just as an aside, I think this is a problem with our politics in general, is that it has become hyperbole rather than actual statements. Because, I mean, there's probably not the right time to do it. But, you know me. But there is one candidate in this election that talks about, and has for the last 8 years, that if this happens, then you won't have a country anymore. If this happens, we'll have the worst crash ever.
World War
III. And it's the worst crash ever, and the economy is going to be worse than you were in 1929, and it's always the worst of everything. And so we have come to a place where it's hyperbole, and I believe that that's exactly what Dick Cheney is doing here. And it's hyperbole. Yeah, I think that's what he's doing.
He continues. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He can never be trusted with power again. It's a lot coming from a guy that had a lot of power to go to war in 2 other countries while he was vice president. As citizens, we each have a duty to put country above partisanship, to defend our Constitution. That is why I will be casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. That's Dick Cheney. Now, Billy, I sat in same studio as Dick Cheney when he came to CCU, and Hugh Hewitt hosted him, and we had a conversation. Then we did an event. In fact, it was my very first event as the director of the Centennial Institute.
Wow.
Was with Dick Cheney at CCU.
Nice.
I have driven around in my little CRV with Liz Cheney, because it was my job in the Romney campaign to pick up any surrogate at DIA, drive them around the state.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And my job was to brief them on the state of the race in Colorado and tell them what we needed them to talk about at the little rallies. So, you know, Marco Rubio, for instance, pick up Marco Rubio, drive him around. We're going to speak to a Spanish audience. We need you to highlight this stuff for Mitt Romney. So I spent an entire day in the car with Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney. Up until now, I generally had a pretty positive opinion of them. I have said this, and I said it last week. I'll say it again. How you as a Republican go from not supporting a candidate to embracing the Democrat candidate and actively working to elect them, it's something I can't wrap my mind around at all. Kamala Harris. Dick Cheney believes that Kamala Harris is going to better defend the Constitution of the United States than Donald Trump. Just look at the picks they put on the U.S. Supreme Court. If you really believe that Donald Trump is this great threat to the Constitution, then he would have put people that were generally pretty bad for the Constitution into the U.S. Supreme Court. In this case, all of his picks, I think, were fantastic at actually defending the original intent of the Constitution. So I can't, to me, this smacks of personal vendetta spilling out, and Dick Cheney is willing to sacrifice the future of this nation in order to achieve a personal vendetta against Donald Trump. That's what it seems like to me. What do you think? 303-696-1971. Let's go to Rob Lakewood. Rob, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Bill. I think what this points out that some people that have had stature in government are statesmen, and some are just political hacks. And I'm seriously disappointed in the Cheneys. To me, it's to the status of reprobate. I hesitate to use the term rhino for Republicans when we disagree with them. I don't look at Dick Wadhams and others that have been vilified by my side of the party as rhinos, but I look at the Cheneys and I say truly, definition-wise, they and Adam Kinzinger and the former lieutenant governor of Georgia, these political hacks that come out and endorse someone like Kamala Harris over President Trump, who was not my favorite back in 2016. I was a never Trumper until after the convention. I didn't like the fact he called my candidate Lying Ted, but I think that Ted Cruz has proven over time that he is a statesman, and there's some people that rise above the petty personal attacks that President Trump has distributed rather equally and generously on a lot of different candidates. Some of them get past that and look for the good of the country, and I'm seriously disappointed in the Cheneys. I would say truly they are the definition of rhinos, and I'd go a step further and say I think they're reprobates.
Interesting,
to do what
Rob.
they've done.
Now, Rob,
Yes.
you used a word in that description there. You used the word statesman. How do you define statesman? What do you view as a statesman?
I think somebody that walks the walk and tries to promote the country and the interests of the country and the Constitution as the primary focus of their work and effort in politics. And I think President Trump is flawed as a person. As I look at him being on occasion, I think that he's a statesman. He has an unconventional way of doing it because he didn't get directly involved in the political game, for years at his age. If he'd been like Biden, he'd been in it for 50 plus years. But he's jumped in to try, I think, from his perspective, to save the country. And I look at his record of his first term, and I think I was vindicated to support him and vote for him. And I was much more for him in 2020, and even more so now because the stakes are so high. And the variance of opinion and objective is so clear and objective between President Trump and the other side, the whole Democrat Party.
Well, I'm kind of hearing from you, Rob, that the statesman is a person that respects values rather than going where the wind blows. Now, the thing that I would push back on that is say that it would be very easy for Dick Cheney to come out and say, I'm behind Donald Trump, that he's jumping on the bandwagon. I would submit that it takes the statesman, as you describe it, to stand out there and say, this guy is bad. We should not elect this person. And according to Cheney, he's doing this based on his value system. Yet, because you disagree with his choice, I'm hearing you say he's no longer a statesman, not based on the definition that you offered us earlier, but based on the fact that he's not voting for your team. Your thoughts?
Well, I think the fact he's not voting for my team is reflective that he is. If he had true values of being for the Constitution and from the right side of the political perspective, he would maybe say, although I disagree with President Trump's methodology and some of his ways of doing things. I am looking for putting a man back in charge that is for the better of the country.
Now that's
Because
interesting, Rob.
you
Let's
look
stop,
at
wait, hang on a second, Rob. Stop there, because you used a phrase there called, the right choice. Are you using right or coming from the right side of things? Are you talking right as in correct? Or are you talking right as in conservative? How are you using the word right in that sentence?
I was thinking of the conservative side, but I also
okay. Now let's stop there.
Right side,
okay, that's fine. I bet it is. I bet you believe that the conservative side is also the right direction for this country. But if you say that I disagree with Cheney because he's not going to support the right side, and you're talking about conservatism, aren't you just abdicating? You're ignoring your argument of statesmen. Because statesmen, where you referred to them earlier, are people that stand on their values. And that's where I'm getting challenging the dichotomy in this, is that because Dick Cheney is no longer voting for our team, he's now not conservative. He's not conservative. He's a rhino, and he's no longer a statesman. Not based on the definition you started with, but based on the fact that he's not wearing the right jersey. Is that fair?
No, I don't think so, Bill. I understand where you're coming from. And yes, I disagree with him because he's not supporting the candidate that I support. To me, it's so clear. It's black and white between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. If you get past the personalities, I think it's unfair to attack her because she's got a silly, crazy laugh at times, or cackling stuff. That turned people off. But there's things about Donald Trump that turn them off towards him. So I'm saying you have to look at policy. You have to look at what they've done. And now she wants to claim that she's done all this great stuff for small minority and Hispanic business as part of the Biden administration. Well, if you're going to take that, you better take some of the negatives too about increasing the rate of inflation that in the grocery store on some items. I think, because I do our family grocery shopping, it's hit 50% or more on some things.
Well, maybe on some things, Rob, but let's talk about the policies. What are the policies that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris implemented that increased inflation? What are those you can point directly to? What do you feel are those policies?
Well, I think it's the emphasis of their Green New Deal policies and crippling business with regulations and this type thing has created inflationary stuff at the foundation of business.
Okay, now Rob, let's stop there for a second. Let's stop there. One, Green New Deal wasn't passed, but we can talk about some of the stuff in the Inflation Reduction Act. But more importantly, Rob, is that if you are going to give Kamala Harris and Joe Biden blame for inflation, you also, in order to be intellectually honest, have to give them credit for bringing it down. Because remember, inflation rose all over the planet. I'm not going to argue the fact that how
it's still at 3%.
Hang on a sec, but
just below 3%.
But 3% is natural. That's what it should be.
Well, I think it's 1.5 to 2%.
No, it's not.
Natural.
Cost of living increase every year is about 3%. That is an economic truism. Cost of living rises about 3% every year. That's why COLA raises are normally 3% or a little bit 4%. That's why they're there. So that's what you're expecting. But the more important issue is if we're going to blame Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for causing the inflation, then you have to give them credit for bringing it back down to 3%. You can't turn around, Rob, and say, in my opinion, that, hey, they have horrible economic plans. They don't know what they're doing. But the thing that you said was so bad, they brought it back down to 3%. We can talk about the grocery store prices. That's a different argument. But how can you blame them for the inflation rising, but you can't give them credit for it falling? Help me understand.
Well, that's fair, Billy. I understand. I didn't say they're wrong on totally everything, but I think their motivation is wrong, and that drives bad policy. And I think the fact, the grocery store story, because I do the shopping, is what it is. It hasn't gone back down. And we can say the overall
right. It's 3% over the last year. It's 20% over when they started as president.
Well, in my understanding, they don't calculate fuel rates in there and a lot of grocery stuff in that rating. If they did that, the rate of inflation under this, this deranged administration, when you look at the people they've appointed, they've got a bunch of idiots in there, but then they're bad themselves. And so if you look at the range of what has happened in their almost 4 years of governance, the inflation would be more accurately somewhere around 30+%.
That's actually, we don't look at inflation over the course of the lifetime. No, because what we do then is you'd look at inflation always rises. We would sit there and say, well, over the last 20 years, it's gone up this much. Oh my God, what are we doing? That's the anecdotal story of I paid $0.25 for a Coke when I was younger. Now I'm paying $1.50 at the vending machine. Oh my God, prices are out of control. Nobody can control it. That is just the function of time. That's the time value of money. That is what happens. We don't sit there and look look at the idea and compound the inflation over year to year. It's just not economically done. Now, hang on. But you were talking about it, and the thing that I keep hearing from you, Rob, is you say all these bad policies, but you're not willing to recognize the policies that even you admit lowered inflation. I'm not saying they have a lot of policies that lowered inflation. That's different. But if you're also looking at what you're paying at the grocery store, you'd have to explain to me why, as earlier guest Erin Real pointed out, the head of Kroger came out and said, yes, we artificially kept our grocery store prices too high for a while. We were taking money off the back of our consumers.
Right.
That's
one component of it.
I know, but that has nothing to do with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. But Rob's feeling that pain, and he's blaming him for it. It's not coherent.
Well, Billy, good things would be okay, but and I understand natural inflation occurring, but 3% a year is totally different than 30+% if you factored all the costs over a 3.5 year period. It's totally different.
Rob, but we would have to look at the idea of supply chain and what happened to the supply chain at that point, Rob. And I appreciate the phone call, but that's the issue: is you're starting at a point where supply chain was constrained at artificially inflated prices and not giving any credit on the other back end. And economically, it's difficult.
There's lots of components that contributed to inflation, but MIT found that the single greatest contributor to inflation was government spending programs. All right. With all the work I've had done to my teeth, believe me, finding a good dentist makes all the difference. I'd like to tell you about Dr. Mike at Rocky Mountain Dental Group. He helps people like you and me look and feel amazing by providing the best dental care available. See for yourself all the 5-star reviews at RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. Here's one. I've been going there for over 20 years. Dr. Mike and his entire staff are outstanding. I like the fact that the same person always cleans my teeth. If you need an awesome dentist, Dr. Mike is your guy. Look, if your gums are receding, maybe you got braces later in life, it's critical to address this issue promptly. Dr. Mike is a top-tier expert in the Chow pinhole surgical technique. This method requires no cutting, no sutures, and virtually no downtime. The procedure involves just making a small pinhole in the tissue and gently repositioning of the gums. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Mike to discover all the benefits of this revolutionary procedure. Call 303-233-1335, 303-233-1335, or visit RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. That's RockyMountainDentalGroup.com to book your free consultation today. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Kamala Harris has got her issues out, finally. We're only ballots dropping in like a month.
Yeah,
and the person that wants to be the president of the United States has got her issues out.
I think there's some early ballots that are even dropping right now, and I have a feeling that may be the reason is there's been a pressure about, like you and other commentators saying, there's not even a policy.
I know. How do you become the leader of the free world and not have a plan?
And again, it is a line at best. It's nothing more than like you were getting together with high school group. You guys big presentation had to do nothing more than put that basic outline. All you're doing is put one thing we wanted to do. There's nothing.
That's exactly right. Because a bunch of bring over the stack of cash. And we're going to definitely get to that throughout this week. But I want to talk about this over the weekend. Cheney Friday going, I'm supporting Kamala Harris. By the way, all right, you spent 8 years making this guy out to be the devil. He actually did a whole film. He was nominated for 8 Oscars about how evil this man was. And guess who's on your side?
Yep. Yeah.
I think for any of the Democrats that lived through 2000 to 2008, war in Iraq, dude shot somebody while he was out on a hunting trip.
He was on brain.
Yes, right.
That's the dude.
And he was the real evil master behind all the curse. I never believed it, but I think this is more a reflection of a personal vendetta. It's disappointing to me that he actually believes that Kamala Harris is going to somehow protect the Constitution.
Yeah. And you know,
really?
Our communications director,
How's the
Joan,
Second Amendment rights going to end up under Kamala Harris?
Joan from Lakewood, the official Jeff and Bill communications director, did call in and voice she couldn't hang out with us, but voiced that as well. She thinks that it is his revenge because of what has happened inside of the party for his daughter. And this is what he's doing.
You have no place in this party right now. And you either have to adjust and adapt, because I will tell you what happened to the party. I was in the room. I used to work for the state party. I worked for Mitt Romney. The party up until 2010-ish was generally dominated by country club Republicans.
Yeah, it was.
Smart people who make a lot of money. And are they as conservative and fighting and throwing elbows and getting in there and going to mix it up? No, because half the other people at the country club were also Democrats.
Yep.
And so, they were friends with them. So they were slightly less liberal. They were generally in control. And then, but they had all these meetings going, how do we bring in grassroots people into our party? How do we get the blue collar back into our party? We had all these strategy meetings, sat in the room when this happened. 2010, the Tea Party started to rise up. We had one last blip of the old school Republicans in 2012. But since then, it's been grassroots, blue collar dominated. Donald Trump, I wrote about this in 2016, tapped into what I call the forgotten man. Because I was sitting there watching how a billionaire, a guy that should have been part of the country club Republicans,
he was
connecting with these West Virginia coal miners.
He owns country clubs.
Yeah, right, exactly. How is he connected with these blue collar West Virginia coal miners that love the guy? Because West Virginia used to be a blue state.
Yep.
And here all of a sudden you got these guys that are like all in for Trump. I'm sitting there going, he did it. He solved it. And Rick Santorum wrote a book called The Blue Collar Conservative, saying the future was with the blue collar. All right. So the party shifted.
Yeah. And I would say at the same time, the Democrats abandoned the blue collar workers and went more into the intellectuals and into the houses of higher education. They went that direction and said, we were the smarter ones and we are going to be the smarter party. And so, at the same time, so while those blue collar voters were being abandoned and forgotten, and again, it wasn't a change right at the right time, but you're right. Those blue collar workers were being abandoned by the Democrats years before, not a long term, but at least 8-9 years, you can look at a slow erosion of what the Democrats were doing. And it was ripe for the Republicans to come in and take a hold of that voter block. And I see some strategy things on the Democrat side of stuff that they're really struggling with that. They're really trying to figure it out because they figured the blue collar would always hang with them.
Yep.
And they still can't figure out why the switch has been made. Yeah.
That's a really good point, Billy. So that change took place. And either you adjust with the direction of your party.
Yep.
There haven't been, and I will caveat this with some squishiness that's happening among spending with Donald Trump and abortion and some tariff stuff. I'd say generally you don't have a total broad abandonment of Republican values that's taking place. I think you can critique some of Donald Trump's policies, particularly around spending, tariffs, and abortion, and go, come on, get with the game here. You need to sharpen up and get more conservative on these issues. But I mean, for Dick Cheney to jump entirely over to the Democrat Party, I don't understand it. It just reeks of personal vendetta for me. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Joe Arvada, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Joe.
Hey, morning.
Well, hi, Jeff. Billy says he wanted to talk about economics, and I'm willing to, but that's not why I called. I called more on what you're talking about now.
Let's go.
One, Dick Cheney is a poster child on why you should vote for Donald Trump. Dick Cheney is everything wrong with the uniparty. Liz Cheney is the uniparty.
No, Joe, I think that this only makes the case for Trump more. I'll be honest. He goes out there and goes, there's a uniparty. It's made up of Bush and Obama and the Clintons and the Cheneys, and they want war, and they're willing to drag our sons and daughters into war. And then you go out there and endorse Kamala Harris?
Remember Halliburton? Anybody? Come on. Look, the other thing I want to disagree with right off is there is no way that Democrats are smarter than Republicans. No, they're more indoctrinated than Republicans. They're indoctrinated by fools. The wise man knows the difference. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. In Ecclesiastes, it says, the fool's heart leans to the left, the wise man to his right hand. Yes, the difference between the left and the right.
That's not politics, though, Joe. That's not what
oh, yes, it is.
No,
that's where you are way off, Billy.
No, that's where you're off.
The left is a ship of fools. On the right, we have the only hope in the right. Now, there are fools in the Republican Party. Dick Cheney, or previously in the Republican Party, Dick Cheney. There are fools that need to be expunged. That's what we're calling Republican in name only, because you're a fool, Dick Cheney. And Liz Cheney, you are fools.
Joe, help me understand why can't they come over and be a part of where the Republican Party is right now? Look, my wife interned for Bush. I worked for Romney, stood in line to vote for John McCain. I've always supported who is ever at the top of the ticket because I understand that what the progressive, godless, radical left is doing to this country is destroying it. So I'm always going to support anybody other but them. Why can't they come over?
Hold on here. Wait, Joe, before you answer, I think I have an answer, and I want to get Joe's reaction to this because he and I have talked about this off air and a little bit on the air about why people like Dick Cheney can't get on board. And this is what I'm going to submit and see if Joe agrees. Because it's no longer the Republican Party, it's the Trump Party. Your thoughts, Joe?
No, the reason that it is the Trump Party is because Donald Trump is for America first. Donald Trump is for freedom. Donald Trump is not for war at any cost in foreign lands. The reason it's the Trump Party is because he's not an idiot and Dick Cheney is. That's the reason.
Dick Cheney, the guy that started his career at 69 as an intern for a congressman, he's now just a rhino. I mean, he's been a Republican his entire working career. No, hang on a sec. He's been Joe, hang on a sec.
Romney,
Joe, stop for a sec. Dick Cheney since 69 has been working for the Republican Party, for leaders, Secretary of State, Vice President, considered to be the most powerful vice president ever. But now, since this guy who used to be a Democrat and is on his fourth political party affiliation, third run for president in a different political party, now he is the savior, not the guy that has been doing the work for the party since 1969. That's why I say it is now the Trump party, no longer the Republican Party. That's why.
No, it's because a person that has not only a great intellect, but also understands who the American people are. We do not want war in Ukraine at any cost. Push the nuclear button on 3. No, that is not what our country is about. Our country is about freedom. It is about, yes, prosperity. See, here's where the fools don't understand economics, and that includes you. I'm sorry. You cannot print unlimited money and then have zero production.
Okay, stop right there.
Stop right there. Okay,
that's it.
Schools.
That's it. Joe, stop. You said that I don't understand economics. Okay, let's talk about the guy that you just said has a huge intellect. Why does your candidate not understand how tariffs work?
You're missing what I also said.
Joe, stop.
Just a second.
No, Joe, no, I'm sorry. This is participatory. And again, Jeff and I host the show. You want to be in charge, get your own show. We're going to continue this conversation this way. You said that Donald Trump has this great intellect, yet he routinely demonstrates he doesn't understand the fundamental principle of tariffs. Why?
And I'll say again, I said that Donald Trump has a huge intellect and he is for American freedom.
Now, that does not answer my question, Joe. Go back to the tariff. Why does he not understand how tariffs work? And isn't that a danger to our economy? No, he doesn't.
He also understands how the Soviet Union works.
Wait, Joe, that you're going afield. No, Joe, let's go back to tariffs. He doesn't understand how tariffs function.
Yes, he does.
No,
you don't
Joe.
understand how tariffs work.
Okay, fine. Let's play this game. Okay, how do tariffs work, Joe? In your mind, how do tariffs work?
Very
Who pays the tariff? Who pays the tariff?
Okay, I will tell you if you'll just listen.
I'm trying.
When a tariff is imposed upon a communist tyrant like China, they cannot sell their goods and dump them here at ultra low cost. And it helps our economy by having our employees work at a real cost instead of slave labor. Slave labor can be used all over the world to lower the cost of things, but it's cruel and demeaning to humanity.
All right, stop right there. Stop there. Nope. Stop right there. Stop right there, Joe. We're gonna go back to your definition. Nope, tariff. No. Stop. We're gonna go back to tariffs. What is the function of prices on tariffs? Because the importer pays that tax. The communists are still going to pay their low wages. They're still going to have their low price for the exporting of goods, but it's the American importer that pays that tax. That cost is passed along. That cost is passed along to the consumer. You can't tell me that Donald Trump is going to make the economy better when he's going to increase the cost of goods for the average American. That is dumb.
I will answer you.
Sure, try.
Yes, there is some benefit by receiving ultra-low, tyrant-created slave labor goods.
No, Joe. No, I asked you about the tariff because his plan is going to make everything more expensive for you and I. His plan is going to make things more expensive. If we're worried about how much we're paying,
I'm explaining it to you.
You're not explaining it correctly. You don't understand how it works.
Be quiet and listen.
I'm trying, but you keep going way far afield on things that are totally unrelated.
Well, then listen for just more than 10 seconds.
If you can stick to the topic, great. Let's try.
Once the tariffs are imposed, the country that is doing the slave labor realizes we can't have 6-year-olds making shoes. So we have to go ahead and create real economies with people making a real wage. And then because they can't sell in our country, which is what they've been doing, selling steel below cost, and destroying our economy, because they can't do that, they have to destroy their own economy by paying people a real wage instead of slave labor.
That's completely and totally wrong based on economy and based on how tariffs work. I'd say you just advocated that the tariffs would actually have them improve the conditions for the workers in the host country.
No, here's what I think is going to happen. It will probably bring jobs back to America, but it's going to make things more expensive. That's why most conservatives don't support tariffs. And there's a real question as to whether or not Donald Trump could get tariffs pass through Congress, I think a lot of Republicans would stand up to it at the end of the day. Look, I think it's easier to just say, I don't agree with Donald Trump on this, but Kamala Harris is going to be a lot worse for the economy than Donald Trump. This is just one issue we happen to disagree with. What we're talking about, I'm going to try to bring it back to that. Dick Cheney, George W. Bush, not supporting Donald Trump? Come on. Bush saying he's going to remain silent on who he's going to vote for. Dick Cheney actually going all the way to the other side and saying that Kamala Harris is who he's going to support. How do you do that as a Republican? Doesn't make any sense to me. Seems to be more like a personal vendetta. All right, for many of us, it's happening. Your hair is thinning. Your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity is lost altogether. Well, I've got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day. And it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They will retain what you have, but what if you want your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair's state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Paul's, it's not about maybe will your hair grow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts, call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. All right, we'll continue with your calls and texts. How do you feel that Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy, Elon Musk, all once Democrats, are supporting Donald Trump, and Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney are now supporting Democrats? What's happened to this country? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to the phone lines. Jim Littleton, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm just going to say that I think Billy's being disrespectful concerning. When you call it the Trump party, I think that sounds like a cult. I'm voting. He was not my first choice, not even my second choice. I really like DeSantis. I thought he'd be a great selection. But anyway, I'm picking the least of the evils from the point of view of I see the Democrat Party destroying America. And I think what Trump has done is he's reshaped the Republican Party to reflect people such as myself. I hated the Republican Party before. It was a bunch of rich, fat, white guys that wanted to go to war at any excuse or were...
Jim, I appreciate it. We're just running out of time here, but Donald Trump's also rich.
Yeah, and it's fair. Jim,
but
Jim
it's funny, he appeals to guys like that, which I appreciate.
The reason I say Trump party is Joe and I have gone back and forth about a year
Yeah.
about is it the Trump party or not. That's the reason.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, August 9th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you won the lottery. You woke up in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour. Engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. The hamster that runs the text message machine still not replaced.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to feed it to my snake. They were hungry. Apologize. So it's my fault. We have no text messages. It's my fault.
Still can't get into the text message.
Nope,
so if you're wondering why we're not responding to you,
that's
because we hate you and are disappointed that you listen to our show.
Yes, my snakes are hungry. Yes, that's it.
But you can always give us a call, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. Fresh that cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Big poll coming out in the New York Times over the weekend. Trump and Harris neck and neck after summer upheaval. Times Siena poll finds. Survey finds that Donald Trump is retaining his support and that on the eve of the debate, voters are unsure they know enough about where Kamala Harris stands. Wow, really? Maybe if you'd put out some series of issues, maybe a few months before you decide to become the president of the United States, we might have a better understanding of who you are. But instead, today, September 9th, they put out their issues.
Barely.
And it's a lot of feel good. Someone posted on X.
It is.
It looks like a startup's proposal where they're going to change the world. All they need is your trillions of dollars to do so.
Yeah. And the only hard part is that it's kind of the same thing that Trump has as well. So they did just enough. But I think this is also, as you were talking about last hour, it was just enough pressure from people in terms of politics and also just from the average voter going, yeah, we see who you are, but we don't know what you want to do.
She's your gal pal.
Yeah,
man.
Exactly. That's the thing is the Oprahfication started to wane a little bit. And so just like she pushed off the interview until the last possible moment, she pushed off policy positions until the last possible moment, because as long as you like her, you can assume she has the same interests and policies that you want. So that's why they hold off as long as possible.
I got through my entire college career on that exact model.
Nicely done.
Turning it in right before it was due. I had a roommate who's actually gone on to be very successful flight surgeon of the year in the United States Air Force. And he's a doc in the Air Force, and he would do his homework, send it to his mom for review, send it to his sister who's a teacher, get all of his essays like triple edited before he turned it in. And guess who wrote their essays 30 minutes before they were due? And then we got the same grade. It drove him nuts.
Oh,
and
my
I
God,
said,
that's funny.
I said, this is not a reflection of you versus me. This is a reflection of our professor.
Yeah, of the standards. That is accurate. It's a reflection of the standards that are required. Yep, exactly.
So up next is news and commentary with Blake Olson. Now, Blake, I got a question for you. I saw Tyreek Hill was detained prior to playing his game. On Sunday, got arrested, and now the footage is coming out and all that stuff. He got detained for not having a license and I guess driving recklessly prior to the start of the game. I remember the golfer got arrested right before the golf game too. Do you remember that a few months ago, Blake? We can't hear you audio. There he is.
Right.
You remember the Blake? Yeah.
Oh,
got you.
yeah. No, yeah. He was before the tournament.
Yeah.
And then they got it all cleared, and then he was able to tee off. Yep.
Yeah. So I think that there's a new job out there for like an attorney to just be like ready to get your players out of jail prior to game starting. Like that's your job. You're on call. You never know. You're quick to race down there to the jail and bail them out so that they can play. But Tyreek Hill detained right before playing the game. That's just crazy.
It's amazing. But that is what they call an agent. So
that's true.
They're on call. Typically they're attorneys, and a guy like Hill has his agent and attorneys on call 24/7.
His agent is Drew Rosenhaus. That guy don't play.
No. He was probably in the back of the car with him.
Yeah, either that or Drew was going to say, I got some of my really hard guys that'll come down here to the station and talk to you about this.
Yes.
In fact,
yes.
the arresting officer, detaining officer, has been
Yeah.
placed on leave already. That was done before.
Wasn't it didn't the other cop that with the, you guys got to help me because
Yeah.
I
Right,
I
golfer,
don't know
yeah.
music. I don't know sports
Yeah.
names like you
It
guys
was
do.
Chambly or whoever it was. His name's escaping me, but he's one of the best
Golfers
in
out
the
there, but
world,
didn't the
yeah.
cop lose his job or something? Or
I don't
Remember
know
that
if
one.
he
I didn't follow it
did.
up. Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that all kind of ended, you know.
does
yeah.
anybody lose their job these
Yes, they
days? Because I feel like
Radio
some
hosts
people
do.
do. Radio,
Yes, yes.
But like
if you're
you-
conservative, you lose your job.
If you are working for the Secret Service, those guys are
Yeah.
still all employed.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
here's,
no
here's the weird
doubt.
part. Now you can understand why Tyreek Hill, given his age, his wealth, trying to get to the stadium, he may have been driving erraticable.
Maybe.
That is fair. That's an absolutely
He's
fair
he's the
critique.
He's one of the fastest
Yeah.
men in the world.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
he
can-
likes
yeah.
speed. He's irresponsible. I mean, he does this all the time.
But did
He-
anybody get
yeah.
hurt? Can't you
Well,
just go, all
other
right,
part is-
Tyreek, after the game, we're going to
Should
deal with
have.
this?
And the other
Yeah.
part is the detention. What, based on that driving,
Right.
led to a detention that couldn't be taken care of? Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
hard pressed to think that anything Tyreek Hill was doing was greater than the issuance of a ticket and a citation.
Right.
That's hard. And remember, here with our very own Denver Broncos, and I don't remember the receiver's name. I don't know if it was Sutton Judy or one of the other ones that
Mhm.
famously was pulled over during a traffic jam outside of Dove Valley because this particular Bronco was driving down the middle of the road with their emergency flashers on and going around all the traffic in order to get to Dove Valley. And when they
Yeah.
were pulled over, they said, well, that's why I use my flashers, because when you use the flashers, you can do that, right?
No. Yeah, to
No.
deliver a baby.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, he wasn't arrested, wasn't detained or anything like that.
And
Got a
even
citation
Laura,
for
even
it.
Laura
Yeah.
Boebert delivered a baby on the side of the road. A lot of people don't know that.
Is
I
that
learned that
right?
reading her
Wow.
biography, her fourth child. But I feel like the cop in this, unless it was egregious, unless there was like real
I
threats to
haven't
violence,
seen it. Yeah.
I feel like the cop would have been like, "Oh, Tyreek
Yeah.
Hill,
Yeah,
allow me to
maybe.
give you the escort
Yes.
treatment here."
And can I get free
Yeah.
tickets?
Right.
That would be the next question.
But he does, you know, he does have a history of these type of things.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
See,
does.
this
Making
is
poor
just
choices
stuff I
behind the
so-
wheel.
Now the part that I didn't like, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, yeah.
So his touchdown celebration, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, the handcuffs.
Yeah, the handcuffs. So he put his hands behind his.
Love that.
his
That's
back.
hilarious.
See, you
Well
like
done.
that? I didn't like that.
See, for me, this is for me, like, is that, you know, I'm an old punk rock kid. That's a
That's
punk
a
thing
punk
to do.
rock move.
That
Yes,
is
Punk rock
exactly.
move. I
No
love
doubt.
that one. Yeah, that
No
was
doubt,
that hit me in
but-
the heart. That was good. I like that.
I have tons of stories on him, but you know, you just got to pray for him. I mean,
Yeah, you do.
he is incredible, unbelievable athlete. But as good as he is on the field, as great as he is on the field, he's even a little bit wackadoodle off it. So, you know, like a lot
Agreed.
of them are, you know. So, hey, you know, the uniparty thing, I feel like telling this story. I have to.
Please
really
do.
quick.
Story time with
Okay.
Blake. Okay.
Okay, story time. Here we go. So it's been 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And I heard Trump speak for the first time. This is before he announced that he was running for president in 2015. So I hear him, I'm like, he's going to win it. I didn't know that much about Trump other than the Washington Generals, and I saw him on the Phil Donahue show a few times, like 20 years earlier. I didn't follow him. I didn't watch the TV show, but I listened to him and I said, he's going to win. He's going to win in 2016 because he is speaking for the people. So I'm talking to a friend of mine and I say, hey, you know what? We're talking about politics, and one of his siblings happens to be with the FBI. So I say, hey, I think Trump's going to win. I think he's going to win. This is a year and a half before the election. And he goes, yeah, I'm talking to my sibling in a couple of weeks. He'll tell me who the president's going to be.
Wow.
Whoa.
And I heard that and I was like, sent chills down my spine. I wanted to believe all this stuff was pure. And I said, that doesn't bother you? I mean, what are we talking about here? What, seriously? Yeah, he'll tell me. He'll tell me who's going to be. And that was when my eyes were opened. And there is a uniparty. There's all this stuff that you hear, it is true. You see it with Cheney and Bush, and it's all coming to light. And Trump is the only guy. He's the only guy that can break through.
To
this.
not
There's no
believe
doubt.
there is a uniparty is to not believe that those that have billions of dollars at stake and who are vicious, ruthless business people are somehow just going to go with the government. Hands off. Hands up. You guys figure it out. The people will figure it out, even though it's going to affect me and all the future I want to do. And these people like Bill Gates and others want control so badly.
Yes.
And it's just to dismiss that entirely.
No doubt. No doubt about it. It's sad, but you gotta really look at it with open eyes. Now, don't forget Bush talked about his sister-in-law, Hillary Clinton. Remember that. That always sticks in my brain.
Did he say that? His sister-in-law?
Yeah. What George Bush goes, they go, what does that make Hillary Clinton? And he says, that makes her my sister-in-law. I'll try to find that.
So here's what I noticed. I worked for Mitt Romney, coalition's director here in Colorado. I'm probably the only guy in the world that worked for Mitt Romney and has spoken at Bikers for Trump rallies. and I remember I got an email at one point. It was like, all right, it was to all Romney staff. If you want to join us against Donald Trump, I was like, take me off this list. I never, I'm never going to sign on to that. Mitt Romney comes from a world that George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush came from, which is the smartest guy in the room should make the decisions. That was their world. So if you went to Harvard, you went to Yale, you were a cut above everybody else. You were the elite of the elite. And as a result of that, you are the most qualified to lead and make decisions. And I think what the American people have come to realize is that oftentimes if you're in that category, you're out of touch. Yeah. You're actually out of touch with what people are dealing with. And so you scheme, you come up with these plans, you go to war in Iraq and Afghanistan, for instance. Yeah, the boys and girls of this country are going to pay with blood, but you somehow have figured it out that it's important to do this. And they just become out of touch. And I think Republicans grew tired of that type of leadership because it wasn't that different than what the Democrats were doing because they're a bunch of elitists too. Yes. Republicans are now the working man's party. It's all shifted. RFK Jr. talked about it. So, but Blake, Billy and I were talking about this. We haven't even gotten to your news and commentary yet because this is a good conversation. But I'll be honest. I had a moment over the weekend where I go, okay, so now I'm on the side of Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy, Elon Musk. They were all Democrats at one point, and the Republicans that I grew up with, like Dick Cheney, are now over with the Democrats. Yes. What is going on here? Am I on the wrong side of this?
What timeline is this?
Revelations.
You win. Oh, you win the morning. That's fantastic.
All right. I love it, man. I love it and I hate it at the same time. All right. 71 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 90 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story. Here's what Dick Cheney and Uniparty guys like former President Bush support. The Marxist left Democratic Party that has brought issues like the ones we see in Aurora and this one in Springfield, Ohio, city council meeting.
I'm done with what I'm seeing. It is so unsafe in my neighborhood anymore. I have the homeless that were trying to camp out, and I have made concessions with them, and I try to help them the best I can to keep them from trying to squat on my property. But it is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard. And I can't. Look at me. I weigh 95 pounds. I couldn't defend myself if I had to.
Up to 20,000 illegal Haitians have reportedly overwhelmed this town of 60,000. Time to send them to camp out outside maybe Dick Cheney's ranch. Let's do that.
Vice President Harris, still people believe that he can handle the economy better. What would you say to them that are listening to you right now? How could you change their minds that you could do it and even better?
Well, you should look at what I've accomplished thus far.
That's in an interview with Baby Girl. Yes, she goes right to the journalist. Kamala Khan advisors scrambling with tomorrow's presidential debate on the horizon. Reportedly, they were forced to rewrite the Harris debate book playbook. The campaign says that she's handcuffed with debate rules. You mean she can't have an earpiece to her advisors telling her exactly what to say? Their campaign is crying out about the fact that she has to have the same rules as Biden, Jeff.
Well, and Politico was reporting that she was going to fact check Donald Trump throughout it. So she was going to interrupt him and go, wrong,
right.
That's what my stat knows technically.
Yeah. One Democratic strategist told Politico that she could get thrown off by the muted mics. They also have a set piece ready to go, guys, that says that she'll turn to the camera and say, for those of you who can't hear it, Donald Trump is trying to yell over me. How many have you been in a meeting where you get talked over? So that's reportedly has been written and all set up for tomorrow. We will see. The debate is tomorrow night at 7:00 on ABC, which stands for always backing Cheney. I mean, communism, the Uniparty. Former Prez, he's not part of the Uniparty establishment over the weekend.
To every citizen who's sick and tired of the parasitic political class in Washington that sucks our country of its blood and treasure, November 5th will be your Liberation Day. November 5th this year will be the most important day in the history of our country.
Colorado has the third highest number of charter school students in the entire country. And support for school choice has been bipartisan for decades. It's just a long time thing we do in Colorado. We let parents pick the best school so that their kids can have the best chance at education.
Kristi Burton Brown advanced Colorado on with Jeff and Billy this morning, and as school choice and charter schools under attack again by the left. There's a ballot measure that will allow Coloradans to protect their choice when it comes to education for their children. Imagine that. Of course, the teachers union doesn't like it, but Brown says this is all about choice.
What this initiative would do is recognize the reality that most parents and families want to live in. And that reality is that parents get to evaluate the school their kid goes to. And if they think it's high performing and great and they're happy with their neighborhood public school, great. Let your kids stay there and let them succeed in that school. But if your kid is better served by a charter school, a private school, by homeschooling them, by taking advantage of Colorado's open enrollment laws that allow you to cross district lines.
All right. Sounds great to me. Sorry I took so much time. Jeff and Billy. Broncos at the Seahawks on Sunday.
Nix evades the sack. Nix the fake. Another fake, and he spins into the end zone for the Denver touchdown.
And rookie quarterback Bo Nix, 26 of 42 in the air, 138 yards, 2 interceptions, 26-20 Seattle over the Broncos.
I don't think we were far off. But, there's always going to be, even if we had won that game, you're going to go in there and correct it the same way. So find ways to run plays as efficient as possible and stay out of third and longs and, overall find ways to get a win in these tough games.
Aaron Rodgers back in action tonight, Monday Night Football. 67 in Arvada, 68 in Highlands Ranch, 71 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies, comfortably warm September temperatures in the upper 80s to near 90 today, tomorrow, staying in the 80s Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Nights in the 50s, so a continuation of the nice September weather we had over the weekend. The only wrinkle is there might be in the coming days 1 or 2 isolated afternoon and evening late day showers and storms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
A big new poll in the New York Times over the weekend. Trump and Harris neck and neck after summer upheaval. Survey finds that Donald Trump is retaining his support and that on the eve of the debate, voters are unsure they know enough about Kamala Harris. By the way, with that debate tomorrow, some Salem deals and specials, right?
Yeah, at 5 o'clock, Larry Elder is going to take over the radio station. He's bringing in a lot of politicos and going to do a ramp-up, talk to you about what you should look for, what you can hear, positives and negatives based on how the outcome can go, and talk about some of the dangers for both sides. So again, Larry Elder starting at 5 o'clock, special debate coverage right here on 710 KNUS, and then we'll be running the debate live for you as well. And then Jeff and I will dissect it the next morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you're not going to want to miss that. That
Yeah.
is tomorrow night,
Yeah.
7 p.m.
So, again,
is the debate. 5 p.m. is when the coverage starts.
No matter where you are roaming, this is radio, and you can stream us. So you don't have to worry about connecting to the TV or the YouTubes or nothing like that. You
It
can
is
just go
so
ahead and
frustrating
listen to us.
to be like, do I have the subscription to get me this
Yeah.
channel? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you're starting to run video all the time on your phone, not only does it take up more memory, but also they're going to drop in ads and the other stuff. And it's clean. Just join us online. Join us through the traditional terrestrial radio. We got you covered. You're going to have the debate, no problem.
So the New York Times big poll coming out. If the 2024 presidential election were held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? Donald Trump up a point over Kamala Harris. They write that the honeymoon period may be over. The results are surprising, they say. But it's also plausible the poll is the first to capture a shift back towards Donald Trump. Do you think that the honeymoon period for Kamala Harris is over? The gal pal, the fun, all that stuff that came out of the DNC, and believe me, it was there. I was concerned because they Oprah-fied her. They made her your best friend, the one you'd want to have over. Let's talk about our latest book. And then they Obama-fied her.
You're right, Jeff. And let me do this. And I'm going to take a moment here, and I'm going to talk to all of our CU buffs, football fans. And I know that Monday morning might be a little tough for you. And I'm just letting you know.
Is she
that
Dion? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is, is the honeymoon over? Because, that's I heard a lot from friends of mine that are a longtime buff supporters that they were a little bit concerned that maybe the honeymoon with Neon Dion is over based on they're not seeing the team move forward. So I think that could be very apropos. Are there a bunch of Democrats and independents like myself out there, not independents, unaffiliated out there? Are there much like us that feel the honeymoon might be over? Are they having those same feelings? A lot of our Buff fans are this morning. And again, thoughts and prayers and my apologies. Your team sucked this past weekend. I'm sorry. I'm not a Buff, but it was awful. I didn't want to see them lose to Nebraska. So, yeah.
That was rough. Both games
awful.
were rough. We watched CU and Nebraska and then Denver and Seattle after about the third quarter. We're all right, let's go do chores.
We got an aside here. Okay, just because second half. Okay, Broncos. We're going to Broncos here just for a second. Second half, we have a rookie quarterback in an away stadium that is one of the loudest and most difficult to play in the NFL.
Let's make him throw.
And yes, let's have him throw over and over again. Outside of Bo Nix scrambling, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attempted rushes in the entire second half by anyone that wasn't wearing a number 10 on their white jersey. I'm not convinced. Again, okay, preface this, I'm not a head coach, nor should I be in the NFL, but I'm not convinced that's how you help your rookie quarterback. So, yeah, it was an awful thing for the Broncos. And this is getting to be an awful thing for the Democrats right now because the Oprahfication, as you talk about, is over. Now she can't just be your friend. She's got to actually get down to not so sorry brass tacks, but at least give me the plans of how we're going to build the building. And she just released her plans in the last 24 hours, last 12 hours, really. But even then, it's nothing more than a list of wishes, hopes, and dreams. But is it going to be enough?
Well, Obama got elected on that. So it is
Fair
absolutely. Enough. But here's some interesting things. I dove into the crosstabs. So unless you're a political like me, crosstabs don't mean anything to you.
I love the
crosstabs. Give you the details on who votes what. So,
and this is why we're friends, because we both do the crosstabs. First thing we jump to is, wait, crosstabs. We didn't even go through the survey, right? Crosstabs. I want to see what they're saying. Yeah,
I'm not that interested in the analysis from the New York Times. I'm actually interested in the stats. So they interviewed 1,695 likely voters from September 3rd to September 6th. Here's some interesting things out there. Okay. So right track, wrong track. That's always a really good indication of whether or not the incumbent party is going to remain in or if people want to change. Vast majority, 60-30, believe we are on the wrong direction right now. So Kamala Harris is not doing herself any favors by saying, I'm with Joe Biden. I'm so proud to have been with Joe Biden right now. We're on the wrong track.
But that may not be what you're seeing in those crosstabs, my friend. And let me make it more complicated.
Yes.
Here's the reason why. I always like the right direction, wrong direction question because it is phenomenally inaccurate. And this is what I'm saying. Let's say that you are a Kamala supporter, but are unhappy with things like reproductive rights, gun control measures in this country. When you're asked if this country is headed in the right direction or wrong direction, you're going to say wrong. So there are some hidden Kamala supporters inside of that number.
28% of them, actually.
Yeah, and that
28% are going to vote for Kamala and believe our country's on the wrong track.
And that's the reason, because they believe that previous administrations or even current lawmakers are taking things down the wrong road. So sometimes that, that right track, wrong track, all those Bernie bros, they're saying wrong track to that question, even though there's no way we would want to get to where they think it's the right track. But they're going to solidly be in that right track, wrong track. So there are some hidden things inside of that number. And that's why I like that number.
4% of Republicans are going to vote for Kamala Harris.
That's interesting.
And 2% and 2% of Democrats are going to vote for Trump.
And they're named Gabbard.
That's interesting.
That is really interesting.
So what you see out of this poll that I found fascinating on the crosstabs is that the economy and abortion offset each other. Okay.
You saw that too. I thought that was really interesting as well.
So essentially people that are like, the economy is my biggest issue, I'm deeply concerned about it, are all going Trump.
Yep.
The people that are like, no, abortion is my biggest issue, are all going Harris. Now, what do you think is going to win out in the end of the day? Do you think people are more concerned about the state of the economy we're in now? Like that's their top issue. And so they're going to go Trump. Or do you think they go, abortion is my top issue. Therefore, even if I disagree with Kamala Harris on the economy, even if I don't like the direction on the economy, that's so important to me, I'm pulling the lever for that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. And I think that's also going to get to support. Which one of the group of supporters is going to show up on election day and cast ballots? Because we don't know. A lot of those are on both sides infrequent voters. And it is really interesting that Trump wins the economic message and Kamala wins the, what you'd say, reproductive rights message using the Democrat word. And we're still within a single percentage point on the overall poll. So that really shows the bifurcation of values on that one.
And I think it'll come down to the quality of the economy. So yes, you have some indications that things are getting better. We had in the 6 o'clock hour, we talked about that there's a survey that came out, University of Michigan, that people actually have more money in their wallet. But the stock market the last few days, last week or so, hasn't been great. So that's been kind of bouncing around too. At the end of the day, what do you think is going to drive people more to the ballot? Do you think it's the economy, the quality of the economy for their family? Or is it this abortion issue? And do men come over? I mean, I don't know if it's that important to men. I think men are going to go, the economy is obviously more important, even if I'm pro-choice. I don't think they come over and make that the top priority. I'd wonder if you can win an election if the core group of abortion supporters are women.
Yeah, you can, because women are 51% of our demographic.
Do you think that? But
So
you have
you
pro-life women.
Yeah.
So if you have
but-
pro-life women plus men who prioritize the economy,
But you're assuming all men. So that's the
I
idea. Is
think
you're going to
most
have
of
men
them.
that are going to go the other side.
Do you think that there's men out there that are like, abortion's my top issue? I'm showing up for abortion.
No, but I believe that there are men that are going to have that experience in their life and look at it, that it could be a sister, it could be a mother, an aunt,
And
or they
top
could,
issue. You think
and
top
well, hang on a second. What I can say is not necessarily top issue, but voting issue. The idea that, do I want this person? I mean, let's just say that for whatever reason, and again, I'm totally imagining this. This is not, but I'm just saying, how could this possibly happen? If you had your sister, your adult sister, when she was younger, have a horrible relationship or even be sexually assaulted,
Right.
and have to deal with that awful choice, but now not be given that choice in some states, I can see a man looking at that and going, oh, good God, I can realize what my sister would have had to go through in order to carry the child of this deplorable person. And I can't possibly imagine what that would do to her mentally and where she would be.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think that you can get that. And I do think this is it. Things. There are some conservative women that, again, back in the day when that big curtain closes behind you and you got to start flipping the levers inside of the voting booth, they'll make a different choice. I've seen it.
But still, so let's say the percentage of
Yeah.
men. You and I are having a campaign discussion,
yeah.
a strategy conversation,
Cool.
the whiteboard. Let's say that percentage of men is, I would say 5%.
Maybe. I might go a little
In
higher.
your world that go, this is the top issue. I disagree with Kamala Harris on the economy, but I'm going to pull the lever on abortion issues and vote for Kamala Harris. Do you think
it's-
5?
No, I think it's closer. I think, again, I'm not sure that they're going to, but I'm saying the persuadable group, my guess is somewhere between 15 and 18% is what I
Okay.
would guess. And I'm just saying they are persuadable, whether or not they will when it comes down to it. And what I go back to is our listeners may recall this a couple of weeks ago where we had a gentleman call in from Castle Rock, and he and I went at it. He went right at me. And one of the phrases that he said was, all the women that I talked to, with the conservative women that I talked to in Castle Rock, are all concerned about abortion. Why don't they understand what's really important?
Yeah.
He went on mansplaining to them about why they should put the economy as number one. And he couldn't, for the life of him, understand why abortion was better and for them. And that's going to be the hiccup. That's going to be the thing.
If you get, let's say you get 15 to 18% of men that would prioritize the economy, but they make this their primary issue. So they're willing to, so that leaves roughly, 80 to 85% of men that'll probably vote economy first, which means they're likely to support Trump.
Yeah.
Not all in its entirety. But I think with women, you probably have 22% of women that are staunchly pro-life.
That they could be staunchly pro-life, but that doesn't mean they're going to pull that lever. And the reason I say this is because I know families that are tremendously conservative.
But out
and
of all the women,
Yeah.
you think 80, I would say 80%, 75 to 80% would be willing to prioritize abortion over the economy. But there's some, the pro-life is primarily made up of women.
Yeah, but again, all I'm going to say is that in my experience, I have seen people that are phenomenally pro-life, but when it comes down to an individual choice with their family members, different choices have been made. And I'm not saying it's universal. I'm not saying universal at all, but I have seen different choices be made on a ballot versus personal life. And when nobody else knows the choices you are making on that ballot, you might be surprised that there are a number of people that because of it are going to make a different choice. And again, I'm not sure.
I wonder if the math still adds up in Trump's favor. If you consider that, like if I'm whiteboarding that out and I say, okay, let's do 22% of women are going to vote for you, even though they're women, and abortion is the top issue among women, they're going to vote for Trump because they're pro-life and and the economy matters to them.
Yeah.
Versus, so what I'm trying to say is I think there's more women that are willing to come over and support Trump than men that are willing to come over and support Kamala.
That's it. That's interesting. Now, here's the way I'm going to twist the knife a little bit. Is can we assume that Trump, based on his recent positions, is pro-life? Is that what his administration is going to be?
I think there's frustration over that, but they look at Kamala Harris because I happen to live with a woman who's pro-life.
Oh, yeah.
about as pro-life as you can get. And they look at Kamala and the absolute frustration with Trump over some of the squishing on abortion issues. But they look at Kamala Harris and she's like, she drives the abortion bus. So yeah, there's no way I'm supporting her.
Yeah.
And they'll still support Trump, but they'll have frustration.
But here's the
over it.
thing, though, is rather the fact is I don't think it's going to be a choice. And this is the fun part of the conversation. I don't think it's a choice where they disagree with where Trump is based on that issue and say, oh, I have to then vote for Kamala. No, they'll leave the line blank
at the top
because they don't support him.
If you still had Democrats that were safe, legal, and rare, maybe, but they drive the freaking abortion bus.
You know, we have Albert Mohler, who does commentary once in a while right here on Salem News. Just last week said he thinks Trump is in danger of having evangelicals and people that are very pro-life stay home or not vote for a president at all based on his
it's not something you can take for granted. Al Mohler is exactly right.
That's what I think
we're not a political coalition that you can just ignore and go, wow, we'll jump over with the Democrats and be pro-choice.
Here's the part that, again, this is a conversation that I don't think you've had, that nobody else in town, I guarantee, hasn't had this. And I'm not certain how many people nationally have had this conversation. Looking at Trump's statement recently about IVF.
Yeah.
He was talking about it being government funded.
He's wrong about it.
Now, wait, hang on a sec, though. This is where nobody's also been saying this. He's just advocated for a single payer healthcare system. He's advocated for single payer. Yes, it's only on IVF. However, he said if the other insurance companies aren't going to pay for it, there isn't a single insurance company that if the government will write a check, will take that money out of their bank account instead, because now they reduce their risk. So every insurance company will stop covering it because it will be paid for by the government. So what he has done, and this is the danger, what he has done is he has established a framework for single payer healthcare. If he goes through with it, now when the Democrats get hold of that model, all they're going to do is expand the care. That's going to be the danger. And no one else has told you that.
Well, speaking of care, Billy, tell us about Balanced Well Space.
Yeah, I've got a lot of things that I need taken care of, and so many of them are physical, a little bit of mental. But I have found an amazing team at Balanced Well Space, and they are making an incredible change in my life. And I want you to talk to them so that they can make the same change in your life. As I was getting older, I thought pain was just what you did. I watched, older men in my life, heard stories about my grandfathers and seeing my grandmothers and how the pain takes away certain things they can and can't do anymore. One of the things my grandmother loved to do, she no longer was able to because of arthritis and other things in neuropathy. She wasn't able to move around as much. She started to have a walker a lot because of the neuropathy and the tingling and the pain in her legs. I've got a team that can change that. BalanceWellSpace.com. Here's what makes them different. Integrative medicine. What does that mean? It means that when you go to the Balanced Well Space offices, they have a wide variety of treatments that they can take care of you at once. Instead of going for one office for chiropractic care, instead of going to another for neuropathy, another one for trigger points and physical rehabilitation and wave therapy, things like that, you do it in one stop. Balanced Well Space has that: chiropractic, neuropathy, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, a whole bunch of other things, plus some amazing new modalities that are non-invasive, and they can make a tremendous difference in your life. Let me give you an example. This past Friday, I'm spending 5 hours with several thousand of my best friends at a Green Day concert. 5 hours. Me, on my feet. I have got a torn meniscus in my left knee that I've had for over a decade. But Balanced Well Space is helping me regenerate that meniscus with their treatments. A whole laundry list of things we've been doing, and now my left knee, the one that used to be the bum knee, is now my strong knee. That's the knee I was leaning on when my butt was bouncing up and down in front of Green Day and Smashing Pumpkins this past weekend. I wouldn't have been able to do that a year ago, let alone 6 months ago before I started working with Balanced Well Space. That's the change they have done in my life. I want them to make the same change in your life. There's a list of things that you're not doing anymore because of the pain, because of restrictive motion, because of the tingling that you're feeling. They can fix it, but you got to talk to them first or nothing can happen. BalanceWellSpace.com. BalanceWellSpace.com. They evaluate you, they take the pictures, they do the x-rays, then they put together a custom plan specifically based on your needs, your pain, and where you want to get to in your life. Then they go to work. And over the course of weeks, they make the changes that get you doing the things you weren't doing anymore. It's been nothing short of remarkable what they've done for my lower back, my broken right shoulder, and this bum knee that I was bouncing up and down to Green Day this past weekend. That's what you can experience as well. But you got to talk to them first. balancewellspace.com. Brand new offices in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2, plenty of parking, and you know I like those shady trees. balancewellspace.com. Check them out, balancewellspace.com. Do me a favor, tell them you heard about them here on Jeff and Bill. Thanks.
Bill, glad to hear you're getting that care. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. What's driving you out and who are you voting for this election? You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Big poll coming out over the weekend from the New York Times saying Trump and Harris are essentially neck and neck. They even go on. The New York Times say that this is possibly a shift back towards Donald Trump. What do you think of it? Let's go to the phone lines. Jay, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Good morning. Great show.
Thank you, Jay. What's on your mind?
Blake's editorials are phenomenal. I love it.
I agree.
Liz Cheney, I watched her during the whole fake trial with the Senate, or the impeachment and the January 6th and all that. And I think it's interesting they say that it's a inability to have a peaceful transfer of power if Trump runs. And in fact, it would be peaceful transfer if Trump runs, which would be kind of amazing because it wasn't in both sides back when Trump was elected originally the one time. And they're just trying to cover their own nest and make sure they continue to get money. And, she was removed from Wyoming in a record election of disdain from the Wyoming people. And she's just like her father with a wig and just basically a little bit of a female look. It's just amazing to me that these people supposedly have principle in whatever they believe, unless it doesn't suit their own personal financial needs.
Yeah, I don't know how you can be a Republican, embrace the Constitution, stand up for all that, and then go, Kamala Harris is my gal moving forward. It doesn't make any sense. Jay, really appreciate the call. Look, thanks so much for being on the show. I want to talk to you about my friends over at Mountain High Appliance. They've cooked up some tasty deals for your kitchen now. For a limited time, receive up to a $3,000 rebate with the purchase of qualifying GE Cafe appliances. Enjoy the Mountain High Appliance price match guarantee and special financing options. Visit one of their 4 locations for all the details and upgrade your kitchen with GE Cafe appliances in Denver at East 64th, Littleton, Louisville, and Glenwood Springs. Mountain High Appliance. Experience the difference. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Absolutely fantastic show today. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. Erin Real joined us, NBC National News Radio correspondent in the 6 o'clock hour. Kristi Burton Brown in the 7 o'clock hour. And then we talked Cheney and Bush and the New York Times Siena poll. So lots of conversation about the upcoming election. But big news tomorrow night, News Talk 710 KNUS is proud to present coverage of the Trump-Harris presidential debate. Join Larry Elder at 5 p.m. for a pre-debate special with Dennis Prager, Sebastian Gorka, and more. Then stay with us for live coverage of the debate on Tuesday night starting at 7 p.m. For election coverage you can trust, stay with 710 KNUS. You're not going to want to miss it. So big night tomorrow night, probably the only debate.
Probably. I don't think they're going to do another one. I think it doesn't matter who wins. Yep. The winner, not going to want to do it again. This is it.
So you got to tune in for that historic debate tomorrow night. Starts at 7 p.m. with pre-coverage at 5 p.m. All the news coverage you need for this historic election. You've been listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Happy Monday.